This tier list is gonna be pretty long and you can check the chapters in the description below. Okay guys, before continuing this video, I really want to just add one message to you guys that please subscribe to my channel. I really have created for you guys a really special tier list and any subscription would help me a lot. I'm really looking forward to get to 1000 subscribers. I am only almost 260 or 70 subscribers away to get to that mark. So if you can help me do that, that would be amazing support from the audience, and I really like you to do that. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you understand my information and analysis. So let's just get to the tier list. Hey, what's up guys? UrAvgWarGamer is back with another video of World of Warships, and today I'm going to be featuring a tier list for all the cool ships that are currently available in the armory that you can actually buy. And there are actually a lot of gold ships, as you can able to see that there are over 31 gold ships currently that you can buy, and these are like crazy amount of numbers that we can imagine. So I mean, it's difficult to basically analyze that which ship has what strength and weakness, and whether that ship is really actually good to buy for your coal that is not going to be easy to farm like in a short amount of time. It takes quite a bit of time. So I can understand the frustration that so many coal ships out there and which one is the best. So this tier list from broken tier all the way to please know, or at least that's what I basically pointing out with these categories, will help you to get to the coal ship that you really need to have in your port. So let's just get to the tier list. Before talking about the tier list or the ships itself, let me explain one more thing as a disclaimer, that these are all my opinions, and this opinion means that I might have a bias for a certain ship, and that might make it seems to be a bit more stronger compared to the other players who might be playing that particular ship. But honestly, if you ask me, I have played over 20,000 random battles and a lot of ranked battles in my profile, so I also have all these coal ships currently in the game, so I know what I'm talking about. So it will help you a lot in reaching out to that particular coal ship that will be the best for you. So let's just get to the tier list itself. So first of all, we have Agir, a tier 9 German heavy cruiser that is available for I think 228k coal. Definitely expensive tier 9 heavy cruiser. But honestly, it seems to be pretty nice, and I would put it into the strong B+ category. Now, why I would rate Agir to be that strong? So let me show you that in the port real quick. So this is the ship itself, pretty decent, long heavy cruiser, a German one. And the strength of the ship, or the gimmick of the ship, particularly are like 305mm guns that it has. 9 of them, and they deal pretty decent damage. The AP damage is pretty decent, and I mean, you don't usually get 305mm guns on a cruiser, but this cruiser have that, and it's called heavy cruiser for exactly that reason. It does have HE shells, but they are not really impressive. The AP seems to be good, but the standout point about the Agir is that the armor of the Agir kind of rivals to some sort of a German battleships, and which basically gives him quite a bit of a strength. Like for example, look at the armor here. The castmate armor is 90mm, which basically bounce every battleship. It basically even bounce or basically shatter every HE shell as well. So it's pretty good against that. Resistant to AP and HE damage, as well as also have this tech armor, which is almost like 30mm, which also seems to be pretty nice. So it is definitely tank a lot much more damage at this tier for tier 9 heavy cruiser than basically other cruisers. Like other cruisers are pretty vulnerable. Agir, even though has a big superstructure for a heavy cruiser like that, still tanks quite comfortably like 380mm guns at least. 406mm guns also cannot penetrate 30mm deck armor, and then you have 27mm bow, which is again resistant to 380mm guns of battleships. So it's pretty good in that regard. You also have torpedoes, which is also another interesting thing about the Agir. These torpedoes, well, you can use it as a brawling point of view when you are pushing towards the battleships, or the battleships pushing, or anything certainly that you can torp. So it's pretty good with 6 km. Its anti-air defense is also pretty decent actually for its tier. Like tier 9, I think the 85 rated Agir what I have seen is that it is pretty good against tier 8 carriers. Tier 10 carriers, it does shot down some planes, but obviously tier 10 carriers are strong against Agir. So keep that in mind. It's a big ship. And I mean, I showed you the armor, the HP pool, like it's pretty high. 62,000, 37% torpedo protection, so it's very resistant to torpedoes of destroyers. Actually, that's very interesting thing. I think no one currently, like there might be like maybe a couple of more crews in the game that has like that insane torpedo belt. So that's also a very main selling point. So these are the strengths that I'm talking about the Agir. The concealment is pretty good, 11.9 for a heavy cruiser like that, which is also very nice to see. So these are all the facts that I would rate it to be strong ship. Weaknesses, of course, even though you have armor like 90mm, which is resistant to Battleship HE and AP, or the Cruiser HE in general, at least in that side, I mean, you have 60 seconds of fire duration for a heavy cruiser, so you will take massive damage in terms of fire duration. You also have vulnerable citadel, by the way. It's a, like, if you don't know, this is what we call a turtleback, okay? And it basically sort of protects the citadel armor in this way, like it's a turtle back, right? But the problem is that this is not angled enough that it can basically prevent you to get citadel at long ranges. So Agir, unlike German battleships, still going to take citadel damage, a lot of damage by battleships, so you have to keep that in mind. You don't have to broadside at long ranges and expect that you will tank like maybe 10-20k damage easy. You will get citadel, and I mean, I have citadel Agir at long ranges like 30-40k volleys with the good battleship like aim. So it is very important that you stay angled, and it's not sort of a brawling ship, but having that much HP does help Agir a lot in doing what it does. Does have some, you know, funny secondaries, to be honest, just to basically tell you here. Like, you can basically even spec it with secondary range, and I mean, secondary range can get up to 11 kilometers or something, which is kind of funny, but it does not going to have a decent dispersion. So I won't recommend that, but at least something to keep that in mind. And that's basically the Agir. Top-notch cruiser, I would put it into the B plus or the strong category, if I can able to show you here. So it's a strong ship. I like it, it's very nice. It's worthy for coal, I would say. At least in the strong category, it is pretty okay. Up to you, a German taste of a heavy cruiser for now. Okay, so next ship is gonna be our tier 9 premium heavy cruiser Azuma. That's an IGN battleship. Where do I put it? I think I would put it into the satisfactory B tier. Okay, let me show you here the reason why I put it into the satisfactory tier. Means it's not the best, not the worst. It's an okay ship. Let me show you here. Where's the Azuma? Okay, there is the Azuma. So this is the ship that I'm talking about here. As you can see here, that Azuma is another heavy cruiser like German, but it does have a bit more glaring weaknesses compared to German battleship, the German heavy cruiser like Agir. So the first thing that I want to talk about, the gimmick, right? What is the strength that makes Azuma a bit different, right? A bit more like interesting. Well, as you can see, these guns, 310mm guns, well, their HE alpha damage is very high. Unlike Agir, Agir has pretty bad HE, like 3600 HE. Azuma actually have 5610 HE alpha damage with my captain build, which basically makes it very strong. And if you even land 3-4 shell hits on a battleship, superstructure, or any armor, like it has 52mm armor penetration capacity, so you don't need to really think of whether you will penetrate that battleship or not. You will actually going to do that, and that's a very good thing about the Azuma, that you will get so much penetration hits, and also you're going to get massive damage from this alpha damage, which is 5610. And by the way, this damage, if I can show you something, let me show you the Missouri. It's a 406mm guns, and look at that alpha damage of the Missouri, 5700. Azuma has, for 310mm guns at the very good reload time, have 5610. So that is pretty impressive. Not only the HE is impressive, but AP is also impressive as well for its tier, 8650. So in terms of gun power, Azuma, I would say, is actually a lot better than Agir. Both have battlecruiser dispersion, by the way. The Agir also have the same battlecruiser dispersion. The Azuma also have the battlecruiser dispersion, so it will have decent accuracy, worse than cruisers, but better than battleships. So it's going to be pretty good in that regard. So the guns are really good, high selling point of this ship. So you stay angled and you can farm battleships at long range because your firing range is also impressive, 19.1, which basically makes Azuma pretty good. Another good thing about the Azuma might be that it does come up with extra heal. The Agir has 4 heals, if I can show you here. It has 4 heals, Azuma has extra heal, which is 5. And that's pretty nice. The extra heal is always good if you tank fire damage or maybe even penetration damage. It also has a spotter plane, and it also comes up with hydroacoustic and defensive AA, which is pretty typical. But spotting aircraft does help a lot in basically shooting battleships at long ranges. So it helps a lot, making Azuma a lot much more strengthful, I would say. A lot much more powerful at long ranges for sure. So that's the strength of the Azuma, and that's what makes it a bit interesting to put it into the satisfactory tier. But then where are the weaknesses? The glaring weaknesses of Azuma is, as you can see here, 27mm armor. Agir has way better armor. Look at that. Way better armor scheme. Azuma takes battleship damage like crazy. 27mm armor means only 3 80mm guns can be bounced. All the other battleship caliber, like 406 or plus, will just easily able to penetrate it and deal massive damage. You cannot angle against those shells. It really does not matter. Azuma will take massive damage. So this is the glaring weakness of the Azuma. Concealment is good. My build does not contain concealment, but it is, again, the Azuma concealment is also like 11.9 or 12-ish kilometer. Pretty okay for a heavy cruiser, but maneuverability wise, it has a gigantic turning circle. So if you broadside, you will broadside for a long time. Even though the speed is pretty good, the anti-air defense is actually worse than Agir, and actually it suffers from even tier 8 carriers most of the time. So anti-defense is not something that is good about the Azuma. Agir does have better anti-defense, and that's why it's not the best, at least in that regard. Airstrikes is pretty typical, like normal cruiser airstrikes, so I don't want to talk about it. So overall, I would say because of this armor, terrible armor, like if I can show you here, look at that citadel. That is insanely thick citadel, will take a massive beating compared to Agir. Agir does have a lot much better, slightly lower, or above the waterline, slightly above the waterline. Azuma has like way above the waterline, and it will take more damage. Cannot able to tank shells at long ranges, and if you show broadside, you might going to get citadel very easily. So keep that in mind, and you should be just fine if you do that angle thing. But again, battleship can penetrate you from anywhere. So this weakness, very glaring weakness, is a problem for Azuma for sure. And that's why I would basically put it into the, let me show you here, a satisfactory B category. So that's basically the Azuma. Okay, so the next ship that I'm going to be talking about is basically going to be the Moskva. Another cool ship that is a tier 10 heavy cruiser. And if I would put that ship into a tier list, I think it will be a strong B plus category in my opinion. I think I can put also this ship to be around A or in the middle of B because it's actually pretty strong as well in some areas. But it does, however, suffers from this pretty weird meta. The gun seems to be a bit underwhelming sometimes, but Moskva used to be very strong heavy cruiser, and now I would say it is strong ship. I mean, let me explain why. So Moskva, as you can see in the port, in terms of armor, or the strengths about this ship is basically its armor. Like its armor is really strong. 50mm deck armor, like 50mm, 155mm means that if you are angled, you will take so much less damage from battleships because they cannot able to even bounce, cannot even able to basically penetrate this at all. So you are going to be very tanky about against battleships in that regard. Its armor superstructure is definitely big, but again, Moskva also has one more strength that is unlike Agir and Azuma, which is basically it does only have a fires that like last for 30 seconds, which is very, very interesting in my opinion. Like for a heavy cruiser like Moskva, it only suffers from the fire duration like 30 seconds. It's very impressive. Moreover, you have massive HP pool of 65,000. Your torpedo protection is also pretty decent of 28%. So you can tank some torpedoes pretty like a bit okay, at least better than average. You have 65,000 HP pool, which is also nice. You can tank a lot of damage. And again, as I said, your fire duration is pretty good. Your guns, on the other hand, is 220mm guns. Very fast reloading guns for 220mm guns, to be honest. And you have very decent HE and also very decent AP penetration, like 6090 AP alpha damage. And you threw these shells almost 10 to 9 seconds, like it's pretty fast. And I mean, if you shoot HE, you will set fires. The fire chance is 17%, which is very nice. Basically, in couple of shooting in between 10 seconds, you might be able to get a fire on a destroyer or cruiser or battleship. So it's pretty good in farming damage with HE, but also good with its AP, because on the broadside, it will easily going to get punishing those ships. Very fast shell velocity of these guns. Like the initial shell velocity is pretty insane, as you can see, 985 meters per second. So it's very good in basically shooting and getting towards the target those shells faster, which is very nice. These are the strengths of the Moskva in terms of survivability and the guns. Also, one more strength in its sleeve is basically the radar. 40 seconds of radar with my build of the, like I have Kuznetsov, the legendary captain of the Moskva. You have obviously 4 heals, which is typical of cruisers, but it's good because, well, having that much HP pool with that heals are very nice thing. But the amazing thing is the 12km radar means that if you get spotted and if the destroyer is within the vicinity of 12km, you will radar it and it will last for 40 seconds. So plenty of shells that you can hit on him. And I mean, if it is caught off guard, other battleships or cruisers or destroyers will also eventually kill him. So Moskva is very good in countering destroyers, that's for sure. It does also have a hydro and defensive AA fire. Moreover, it also have airstrikes, which is again 8km for T10. It's pretty typical for cruiser, so it's nothing to brag about, but at least you have a hydro, which is nice. You have like plane-based airstrikes, which is nice. Your anti-defense seems to be a bit lacking, for only 78 rated. The continuous damage, I'm not going to be explaining like what is this continuous damage and all that stuff. I'm just going to say in a simple way that it is going to be okay or decent against tier 8 carriers most of the time, or actually I would say good most of the time against tier 8 carriers. But against tier 10 carriers, it will definitely going to suffer. It does not have that strong anti-defense unless you put maybe defensive AA, where it will start to get a lot much more value out of this 78 rated anti-defense. So keep that in mind, and I mean you should be just fine with that stuff. The weaknesses of Moskva here. Okay, I talked about the strengths, which is pretty decent, but there are actually pretty glaring weaknesses. And if I talk about the weakness, it comes with also the armor scheme. Very gigantic citadel. I mean, if you broadside a single time on this ship and if the battleship shot at you, there's almost 100% chance you will going to get citadel. 155mm armor is very weak, to be honest, for a heavy cruiser, and it will not going to be able to tank the shells of any ship. Like battleships, even cruisers, most cruisers can also even able to penetrate the armor, unless they are like cruisers. Zhao, Hindenburg, any cruiser that are having 204, 203mm guns, whatever, they can easily citadel it at long ranges as well, because they have that much penetration against this Moskva armor belt. So pretty weak, at least in that regard, and that's why I'm not a fan of Moskva, and that's why I in my opinion, I put it into that B category, B strong category, because of this big weakness. Overall though, it also have this very stale sort of gameplay, because you have to bow in or basically kite in almost all the time. Like, it's not going to be easy to play if you are caught off guard by something that is farming you to death, where you cannot able to disengage. So it is very important to know. And one more problem is that this problem is definitely certain for the Moskva. Just like I said, it also has really bad concealment. Like, it is one of the worst concealments for this tier 10 heavy cruiser. 14.1 concealment basically means that you will get spotted by a moon. It's basically a battleship levels of concealment, to be honest. On a heavy cruiser like that, yeah, that's not going to be tough. Maneuverability device is also pretty bad. Like, turning circle is 10,050. Rudder shift is also pretty average for a cruiser. So if you broadside, you will broadside for a long time before you turn out, and a battleship can shoot you if you cannot able to disengage yourself. So these weaknesses definitely makes it, even though the firepower is good, the in bow tanking power is good, but again, these weaknesses, well, it can certainly makes it not too very strong or even broken category at all. It will put it into like a B plus strong category. So that's where I find it pretty good, and the Moskva is definitely a decent ship, worth it for gold for sure, but it is in strong B plus category. Okay, the next ship is gonna be the Iwami. So where the Iwami should go, I think the Iwami, in my opinion, this tier 9 IGN battleship goes into the strong B plus category as well. Let me show you why. So if I can show you the Iwami here real quick. So Iwami is here. It is available for 228k gold. I don't remember the Moskva as well. I think it cost quite a lot for a tier 10 heavy cruiser. It cost like around 250k gold. Go check it out for Moskva, but this is Iwami. I've put the captain. So what is the speciality of this ship and why it is that strong at least? So good hit pull points like 80,700, decent torpedo protection 37%, which is actually pretty nice. So you can tank some torpedoes effectively for sure. But the main selling point of the Iwami is basically the main battery guns, which has 2.1 sigma. And what I meant by 2.1 sigma is, if you don't know or you don't understand that thing, what that means is that it is very accurate battleship. So your shell's gonna be landing onto the middle of the section where you actually aim, and you might have a higher chance of getting citadel hits because of this good sigma value. Just as simple as that. So it is pretty good in this regard. Decent reload time for 410mm guns. You can actually overmatch 27mm armor like Azuma, as I previously said, very vulnerable to 406mm guns. So you can basically overmatch absolutely everything out of that with these guns. So these guns are pretty good with this accuracy. Moreover, the speciality of the Iwami is that it also have very tanky armor. 50mm armor is pretty good. Not that big of a superstructure either. And even though it does have a citadel, but it does also have a actually tanky armor belt, so it is definitely resistant, a bit resistant to getting citadel hits. But the main selling point of the Iwami is also that for a battleship it has torpedoes. That is insane. And these torpedoes are not like low damaging torps. These are 20km Shimakaze torps that you usually find on destroyers, and you have like 21k damage with like crazy damage. And firing range is also, by the way, good of the Iwami. These torpedoes, these are hilarious. Like, you have 4 torpedoes on each side. So it is pretty insane. So if I can show you here, you have these torpedoes here, like on the stern of that ship, and it's like here, and then you also have torpedoes here. So it is pretty interesting in that regard. You can send torpedoes. They have decent firing angles, so you can actually brawl with these torpedoes. But I think I would say that it is better to use them in kiting position more than pushing, because obviously Iwami does have a big citadel, and it will get citadel in like most of the time, if not all the time. The secondary batteries are also an interesting thing about the Iwami. It does have 100mm armor, the 100mm guns, and these have actually decent penetration. As you can see here, 37mm armor penetration capacity, which actually bypasses the threshold, which is 32mm. What that means is that you can actually penetrate with these guns on all battleships with IFHE build, by the way. With the captain build, you will have 37mm armor penetration capacity. Your 155mm gun secondaries are also able to get over, the 32mm armor pen. So both of these things can penetrate 32mm armor, which is very nice. If I can show you the captain build, I have put basically the IFHE for exactly that. Moreover, these secondary battery also have battle cruiser dispersion on secondaries. It's like a Georgia, it's like a Massachusetts, way better accuracy compared to the normal secondary battery shells. Okay, so they will accurately hit on the target effectively, which is pretty nice thing, and that's why I didn't put that captain like this build manual secondary battery, because it already has very decent dispersion. I only gone for range, which is nice. Again, very good strength about the Iwami again is that it has secondary damage per minute, which is very high. I mean, it is basically comparable to Schlieffen, and Schlieffen is one of the highest, or at least a very strong secondary battleships in the game. So it's very good in that regard as well. Combined with the guns that it has, 410mm guns, very good guns, reload time is very good, Sigma is very good. With these secondaries, it basically does things like almost everything for a battleship. You also have torpedoes, just like I said, high damaging torpedoes. You are pretty good in many things. So that's the reason why I would say that these are the strengths of the Iwami. So let's talk about the weaknesses. So I mean, there are some strengths for sure, but the weakness is armor. If I can show you here, vulnerable citadel. Even though they have given him the secondaries that are pretty decent, very high damaging, or like damage per minute is very high for these secondaries, but the citadel is very much above the waterline, as you can see, and it will take massive damage from battleships if you are broadside like crazy. So keep that in mind. You should not do that at all whatsoever. Your entire defense is also nothing to brag about. It's actually pretty weak, and even the tier 8 carriers can absolutely shat on you, no problem whatsoever for them. Tier 10 carriers, sorry, my bad about the English. Even tier 10 carriers can be having issues with Iwami for sure. So combined with these facts, Iwami will definitely going to suffer in some way or the other. These secondary battery also have very less maximum range, only 10.5 kilometer, just to balance that amount of firepower that secondary battery has. So they have nerfed some sort of the range, like it does have a limited range, which basically kind of sucks. So these are the things that I don't like about the Iwami. And Iwami sometimes have wonky dispersion because of the IGN shell dispersion ellipse pattern. I mean, it's a battleship dispersion ellipse. I mean, typically you will get that dispersion ellipse of the IGN battleships to be a bit wonkier. The shells can go sometimes a bit up and down, and sometimes you will feel that the accuracy of this battleship is kind of weird. Sometimes it is pretty decent, inaccurate, sometimes it's pretty weird. So I have these issues with the Iwami, and I don't like this. So for that exact reason, poor anti-defense, airstrike is okay. Vulnerable citadel, you don't have fast heals like Georgia and Ohio as well. You have 5 heals, but it only have 73.7 seconds of cooldown time, so not fast cooldown on heals. So I mean, even if you push in, you won't be able to heal back so much HP pool quickly, and that's what basically makes Iwami a bit weird brawler / sniper, and that's why I put this ship into let me show you here, the strong B category. So Iwami feels pretty okay here. Okay, the next ship is going to be Hayate. So where do I put Hayate? Hayate is a tier 10, by the way, premium coal destroyer, another IGN ship, by the way, and I would put it into basically a strong B+. It used to be in the satisfactory B, but now it belongs into the strong B+ because of the recent buffs that they did. Let me show you the Hayate real quick. So Hayate should be here in tier 10 category. Let me show you real quick here. So where's the Hayate? So there's the Hayate. Okay, so what is the key strengths of this ship and why I put it into the strong B+ tier? Hayate actually has pretty decent gun power, also have pretty decent torpedo power. Both in both factors, like having good, HE DPM as well as decent torpedo DPM as well, like high damaging torpedoes, 24,000. These are Shimakaze torpedoes, by the way, if you don't know. And Shimakaze is a really strong torpedo boat destroyer if you know how to play. And Hayate does have access to 10 of them, which is nice. And 6 guns, 3 seconds of reload time almost, with decent DPM, basically means that Hayate can actually take down not only on destroyers, but also can take on battleships with these torpedoes. And that's the main selling point of the Hayate. And decent HP pool of 24,000. It's pretty decent, although it does not come up with any heal or something. Very strong depth charges, so submarines will definitely going to suffer. And maybe on just a single run of depth charge strikes on the submarine, you will be able to kill him effectively on time, which is nice. So these are the strengths that I really like about the Hayate. Moreover, Hayate also comes up with this insane torpedo reload booster consumable, which basically means that you can send after sending 10 torpedoes, you can just use this consumable and your torpedoes load in just 10 seconds. And you can send another set of torpedoes. So basically 20 torpedoes within just 20 seconds, which is pretty hilarious. Like 20 torpedoes within just like a half a minute is pretty insane, and also a very nice thing to have. So this is very nice, combined with the fact that you also have smoke, you also have engine boost with these good guns, so you can able to shoot on destroyers. Basically makes Hayate way much versatile and helps a lot in winning the games. So these are the strengths that I really like about the Hayate. So it's pretty good in that regard. But the weakness, which is what makes it not to the very strong category, is basically it is very vulnerable to carrier strikes. Like carriers will just dump on Hayate. Very poor anti-air defense. Tier 8 carriers can also easily able to smash this guy. You have to basically use your smoke to disengage, otherwise you're going to take a lot of damage from carriers. Your maneuverability is also questionable for a destroyer. 750-meter turning circle, that's basically rivaling to that of cruisers. On a destroyer, you have that insane turning circle radius, is hilarious. You also have okay rudder shift, decent speed, but again, your concealment also kind of suffers, like 6.1 kilometer, and you cannot able to basically outspot those torpedo boat destroyers. This is getting into the category of gunboat sort of detection. So even though it is not like superior gunboat compared to all the other gunboats, but it comes up with this bad concealment that basically rivals to that of gunboats. So it's pretty weird combination of Shimakaze and Harugumo. Both are those destroyers are in the tech tree, and Hayate is basically in the middle of somewhere, and that's what makes it a bit interesting, that it has torpedo reload booster or something, or smokes, or basically things like that. So Hayate, in my opinion, is actually a interesting destroyer because of the recent buff. And if you like torpedo boat destroyer, if you want to earn decent credits, if you want to get a feel of Shimakaze and Harugumo in just a single ship, Hayate, it feels like to be a solid, strong category B+ for me. So now talk about the Malta. It's an aircraft carrier, a Tier 10 one, a British aircraft carrier that is available for, I don't remember, 250 to 270k gold, in between 270k gold. I don't remember the number, but let me tell you about something that you want to know about the Malta, which is the tier list category that it should be belonging. So it will go into the very strong A tier category for me. Why I would rate it very strong? Let me talk about the Malta here. So as a carrier player, I played so many carrier games, I can explain why Malta is really, really strong actually. I would say almost even borderline broken most sort of time. Like, it totally depends on the matchmaking. If there are a lot of light cruisers, you can actually smash them with these bombs, by the way. But let me tell you the strong points of the Malta. So as you can see here, you have very high tanky aircraft carriers, the aircrafts, like they are very, very tanky planes, by the way. 2440, 2700 HP, 2500, these are all tanky planes. You are coming up with these rockets, torpedoes and bombs, And rockets are very, very effective against destroyers. I'm telling you, if you shoot these rockets on a broadside destroyer, you can chunk them 5,000, 6,000, even 8,000 damage with these rockets. So they are very, very strong against destroyers. Also, they are strong against light cruisers because of its 28mm armor penetration capacity. Fire chance is pretty good, and you can actually, like, you have so much rockets, 40 of the rockets in just a single attack flight. You have 3 attack flights, as you can see here. And you can even, like, in just a single attack flight, you can just smash destroyers like 5-6K. So imagine if you just have 2 strikes on a destroyer, you can basically chunk him like 12,000-13,000, which is pretty crazy. Torpedo bombers, crazy damage, 6,500. They just recently buffed that number, by the way, for some weird reason. They do massive damage, like it is almost 20,000 damage in just a single strike on a battleship. In just a single attack flight, it can basically deal 20,000 damage. So 2 strikes can literally do 40,000 damage. I mean, you have so much gameplays. You can go and check out my gameplays in my YouTube channel. You will be able to find out why it is that strong. Okay? It's pretty hilarious. And obviously then it also have bombers that are actually interesting, because if you drop these bombers on light cruisers like Minotaur, Jinan, there are Edgar, Austin, these are all ships that you can actually able to do like 15,000, 20,000 damage. These bombs does crazy damage because you can actually get a citadel damage on them by just dropping them, which is crazy. So these things combine the fact that Malta has a ton of planes on deck, 20 planes on deck, 20 planes on deck, 25. It's crazy numbers. Your aircraft preparation time is very, very high. Like low, I would say. 46 seconds, 57. Basically, in just 20 minutes, you can basically load 20 more planes, apart from like having insane amount of deck on like aircraft. Aircraft on deck. Like, it's crazy. You have so many planes that you will never going to get deplaned if you are above average CV player, to be honest. Even an average CV player will not going to suffer heavy losses because you have so many planes, so much tanky planes. It is crazy. You can counter basically anything. You can counter destroyers, cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers. Every single counter you have in the form of Malta. It does amazing. These bombs are also very effective on battleships, and even sometimes on destroyers that have 25mm armor on the deck. Like, there are some destroyers, like for example the Ragnar. If you drop these bombs on Ragnar, for example, let me show you here. You have a bit of a armor like 25mm here, so you can actually able to do penetration damage with these bombs. It is crazy how strong the Malta really is. So these are the things that I really like about the Malta. But why I would not put it into the overpowered broken category? Because I just literally talked about the Malta seems to be like completely broken, right? Well, there are some glaring weaknesses of Malta. So let me show you the armor here. So the weakness of the Malta is pretty much exactly here. Look at that armor belt. It's only 102mm Citadel armor belt. And what that means is, if you broadside in a carrier like this, you have no chance of surviving. A single battleship salvo will absolutely death strike you. It is huge, gigantic Citadel. Look at that long Citadel from top to bottom, from left to right. This is very, very big. You have also these bow and stern that are basically very vulnerable to take a lot of HE damage, like 21mm. So if anyone shoot these guns on that side, you are basically going to get punished. So it's not that tanky in that term. And then even though you have 102mm armor thickness, by the way, there's also one more thing before talking about this armor thickness. If there is a CV, Manfred von Richthofen, he has the AP rockets. If he comes up and basically tries to snipe you with these AP rockets, you are going to get sniped very, very easily, very fast. You cannot do much about that. Those are fast planes, and they will come and just drop you very quickly, and you are very vulnerable to get sniped pretty easily. So carrier versus carrier, Malta definitely going to suffer a lot. It also have this Citadel deck armor. You can see there here. Like, it is vulnerable to AP bombers of carriers as well. Every AP bombs in the game, like at least at tier 10, Hakuryu can do Citadels on you. Manfred von Richthofen can do massive, massive damage on the deck of the Malta. So you basically have no chance against carriers. You are definitely a lot much more vulnerable. So with this thing, with the broadside that it has, terrible broadside, survivability point of view, it is definitely a bit questionable in terms of its armor layout. I didn't rate it to be broken, and that's why in terms of its overall capacity or capabilities, the Malta's definitely going to be on the very strong tier. Next ship is going to be Black. So where do I put the Black? So it's basically a tier 9 destroyer, American destroyer, that has something very interesting. It is also one of the most expensive coal ships in the game. It costs around 290k coal, 96k coal if I'm not wrong. Where do I put this Black? So I think I would put the Black into the very strong A category. So the reason why I've put it into the very strong A category, let me show you why. It is definitely very strong. So where is the Black? Let me show you the Black real quick, and there it is. So this is the ship that I'm talking about, okay? So what Black basically has this very interesting gimmick is basically it comes up with something that I think there's not a whole lot of destroyers that have in the game. A radar. A destroyer that has literally a radar. You counter destroyers with radar, but not only with radar, okay? It has almost 23 seconds of radar, but it also have smoke. And what that means is that if you basically get spotted, which by the way has really, really good concealment, very competitive concealment of 5.8, and even it does not matter if you get spotted. I mean, if you get spotted, you have 7.5 kilometer radar, you smoke up, you basically radar, and you basically farm that destroyer without that destroyer countering you back with its guns. There's just no way. You just smoke up and you basically farm that destroyer, and you basically kills him if he does even more poorer mistakes. That is a huge gimmick or something like that. I mean, I won't say it's a gimmick. It's so much powerful strength for a destroyer that it basically makes it very competitive in clan battles, in ranked battles. It is crazy powerful. I would say in randoms, it feels a bit into the strong category because there are so many ships. But in the ranked battles, in the clan battles, it becomes super competitive. The Black. It definitely shines a lot in that regard. The gun reload time is pretty good. You have 5 of the guns, decent reload time, so you still have, I mean, it's not like a meta-defining HE like guns, like it's not like devastating firepower, but it is pretty decent. HP pool survivability is 20,700, which is pretty typical at tier 9. Nothing to brag about. You does have, like, Black does have like torpedoes, which are also interesting, by the way. Almost 22,000 maximum damage with these torpedoes. Very, very high range, but these torpedoes are probably the most slowest in the game. Only 47 knots. And you might be thinking that these are terrible torpedoes. Why I should even think about these torpedoes? Like, or why are they even remotely good if they have very slow torps, like 47 knots? Well, to compensate with this like crazy slow speed, they have basically make their detection on each of the torpedoes is very, very low. 0.9 kilometer concealment on these torpedoes. They will get spotted under 1 kilometer. And these are undodgeable torpedoes. Once you get them spotted, these basically perform like Asashiotrops. And Asashiotrops are basically very infamous in basically not getting detected by a long, like it just have so much low reaction time regardless of slow speed that you will going to eat all the torpedoes. And you have also high damaging torpedoes, by the way. These are not like your typical 15,000, 14,000, 16,000 damage. They basically almost perform like Shimakaze torps. Very, very good range. So basically, you can call it sea mines. You basically send them and you just forget about them. And then you will see like boop, boop, boop. And like they hit like hard on a battleship. And you maybe even get a dev strike on a destroyer. You never know because of this insane concealment on these torpedoes. So with this good guns, good range, by the way, base range is 13 kilometer almost, which is good. Combined with decent torpedoes, even though the shell arcs are not the best, so don't think about like you just farm like a gunboat. Very terrible firing arc, so keep that in mind. But combined with the fact that it has this gimmick of smoke and surveillance radar, pretty insane stealthy torpedoes, even though they are slow. If you know what you're doing, you're still going to land some torpedoes with decent depth charges, by the way, so you can counter submarine well. You are basically a very competitive destroyer that basically kills the destroyer, and you basically get the cap for free. It is insane. You just go, smoke or radar, kill the destroyer, and you basically win for the team. Most of the time, obviously. And that basically is a huge advantage in my opinion. Weaknesses of the Black are kind of, in between these torpedoes. I think personally I don't like these slow torpedoes. It sometimes be a lot much more rough to use. I mean, if there's a battleship that you can drop on point blank range, I mean that's fine. But overall, I'm not a fan of these slow torpedoes. The entire defense is pretty terrible. You don't actually have a speed boost, by the way. I mean, you have to either use radar, engine boost, or defensive AFI. So I exactly know that I cannot use anything else than radar. So I literally don't have speed boost on Black. I can't use speed boost. It's not possible. Poor anti-air defense, no speed boost at all. Your concealment, even though it's good, but yeah, I don't like the entire defense, and the engine boost thing basically makes Black a bit a rough side. So and that's why I didn't put it into the overpowered category. I mean, carrier's gonna definitely dump on you no matter what. You can definitely counter submarines, but again, your firepower is not like crazy gunboatish. And I mean, you only have these torpedoes that may be going to hit on a battleship or cruiser if you just exactly predicted, like crazy predicted on a target, which is almost impossible because of these slow torpedoes. So yeah, these are the facts that what makes Black to be pretty much on a strong only A category tier here. So that's why I put the Black on this category. Okay, the next ship is going to be Napoli. So the Napoli, where does the Napoli belongs? Napoli belongs into a very strong another ship for coal. So why Napoli is interesting? It's a tier 10 Italian heavy cruiser, by the way. Just like Moskva, it's a heavy cruiser. The Napoli is also a heavy cruiser. So let me show you the reason why Napoli is a bit interesting. And I put it into the very strong category for a reason. So there's a Napoli. So Napoli is interesting in a couple of ways, which makes it very nice cruiser. And that is, first of all, the main selling point of the Napoli is this like crazy good armor. 40mm armor, it's crazy. Like this tech armor is basically easily able to bounce the battleship shells off like every caliber. No battleship shell like can able to basically overmatch this. You have 60mm armor, which is also good in resisting those HE shells. They will shatter on this because of that high armor thickness. With this 40mm and 60mm combined, the fact that its citadel is kinda trolley, I would say. It's a weird citadel. It's like having protected with a weird turtleback. So I do get citadels on the Napoli, but sometimes this armor belt can be trolley sometimes, and at long ranges, it's gonna be a bit difficult, what I felt sometimes, to even citadel him. So with this trolley armor, definitely, it basically makes Napoli interesting in that regard. With these factors of really good tanky armor belt, which is pretty nice, you are very resistant to battleship guns, makes Napoli very, very strong cruiser, at least in the defensive point of view. Your HP pool is pretty decent, 59,200, almost 60,000. Your torpedo protection is 22%, which is okay. I won't say it's just average. I would say it's not the best, but it's not the worst. Very small superstructure. I'm not going to be talking about the guns first. I'm going to talk about the only armor. It does have 25mm bow, which will come into the weakness, by the way. Not that tanky, but at least you have decent survivability. There's one more thing that I should add to make Napoli even more interesting, and that is basically Napoli only suffers with 30 seconds of fire duration, like Moskva. And what that means is that you are not going to get burned down that easily because of the 30 seconds of fire duration. You also have these exhaust smoke generator, which is very typical of Italian ships. So what that means is you basically smoke up, you will just stay undetected in smoke for around like almost a minute. which basically adds another defensive layer to Napoli. So basically Napoli is super tanky like battleships. Then you also have a smoke, and you also have fighter. So if you want to spot battleships from fighter consumable, you can also do that. So you stay in smoke, you pop the fighter, and the fighter like typically is going to start spotting on battleships. And you basically have another thing in offensive side, but I will talk about that later. But you have the smoke, you have 4 heals, you have insane HP, you have fighter. You can also fend off fighter with fighters are good in countering CVs, so it's also that. Decent torpedo, average torpedo protection, but still okay. Really good armor means that Napoli can tank really well. There's another selling point of the Napoli, and that is its secondary batteries. The main battery has 254mm guns, which I will talk about it later, but the secondary battery is interesting because, well, you have fairly insane secondary SAP DPM coming out of it. This is SAP we are talking about. 26mm armor penetration, 42mm armor penetration. These two things with SAP secondary means with the best accuracy that UrAvgWarGamer has put into the Napoli in the game, means with the insane range, by the way. I mean, you can basically spec the Napoli around 11 kilometers something. 11 kilometer firing secondaries combined with the fact that these are SAP, they will penetrate a lot and they can do a lot of massive damage. With this cruiser sort of dispersion, like the dispersion pattern of the secondaries are very, very accurate. It is so accurate that it is even better than the Graf Zeppelin, which is possibly the highest accurate carrier secondary ship in the game. But now it is Napoli. Napoli has really, really strong secondaries with SAP TPM, with the decent firing range. You have smoke, you have fighter, you have heal, you have basically almost everything in that regard. Basically makes Napoli into a very, very strong ship in my opinion. You have torpedoes as well, 13.5 kilometer range. If you want to brawl, you can certainly brawl with this ship, no problem whatsoever. Decent torpedoes, 13,900 damage. I mean, these are good against like battleships who are pushing and you can send them, which is pretty nice. Airstrikes are nothing to brag about, pretty typical. With these all things, Napoli basically a very defensive cruiser with secondaries on it, so can brawl particularly well against 1 versus 1. Weaknesses of Napoli: terrible reload time for 254mm guns, really bad HE-DPM and AP-DPM. Like AP is good penetration wise, but it has a bit weird dispersion as well. It's not like cruiser dispersion. First of all, it is basically a sort of a heavy cruiser, or I would say the battle cruiser dispersion ellipse, so it's not very consistent. You are going to get some wonkier shells from time to time, and really bad reload time basically prevents him from getting a bit overpowered, I would say. But these guns are pretty good, by the way. The alpha damage of the HE shells is pretty good. With my build, I basically have almost 3,800 alpha damage. And I mean, the AP is also pretty good on a broadside, which is also nice, but still terrible reload time. You have anti-defense that is actually pretty terrible, to be honest. I mean, if a carrier is trying to strike you when you don't have fighter running, you're going to take a lot of damage, but you cannot actually smoke up, so it's not going to be that big of an issue. But still, carriers can definitely dump on you regardless. Maneuverability is okay. I would say actually good speed, by the way. 37.3 knots is pretty good. Maneuverability is pretty decent. Concealment is actually very, very good. That's also one of the really key strengths of the Napoli, by the way. You can almost have 10 kilometer-ish concealment. I don't remember the numbers because I have Luigi Cincinnati, the legendary captain on this ship, and I have this heavy HE and SAP shells, and that's why I have very high concealment. But to be honest, this concealment is pretty good on Napoli. For a heavy cruiser like that only have 30 seconds of fire duration, you have so much tankiness on the armor, you have smoke, it is crazy going for it. So because of this, I would rate Napoli to be a solid, very strong category. Okay, so the next ship I'm going to be talking about is the Tier 9 premium battleship, the Kearsarge. So Kearsarge, where do I put this ship? Very strong again. I love Kearsarge, by the way. In my personal opinion, I want to put it into broken, but a lot of players, are not carrier players, and Kearsarge has a carrier aspect in it, and that's why I put it into a very strong category still. So let me talk about the Kearsarge. Why Kearsarge is interesting. Kearsarge is basically an American battleship that you can buy for 228k gold. And by the way, it's a gigantic, as you can see, it's the most weirdest battleship that you can able to see here in the game. Well, the gimmick of this battleship is that this battleship have 12 guns. 12 guns, 406mm guns, easily able to overmatch 27mm armor. You have 12 guns. Reload time is slightly high, but still it does not really matter when you have 12 guns with actually 1.9 sigma. And obviously you can also put this thing, which is basically artillery plotting room modification 2, improving dispersion a lot. 1.9 sigma with this thing basically means that you're going to get very, very juicy volleys on other targets. And 12 of these guns means that you're going to be having at least one shell that's going to hit onto the citadel, regardless of how wonky the shells can be sometimes. Torpedo protection is decent. HP pool is actually very, very nice, 84,000. That's actually one of the almost highest. There are only a couple of ships that have like higher than 84,000, only like a couple of them, but it is almost one of the best in terms of having a lot of HP. But apart from these guns, it also have actually very decent anti-air defense. 80 rated for tier 9 is pretty good. You can actually have decent time against tier 8 carriers. So, I mean, tier 10 carrier can still screw you up, no problem whatsoever for them. But tier 8 carriers, you're going to be just fine. Tier 10 carriers, you can shot down some with this anti-air defense, but don't really think about, shotting down or getting AA defense expert like easy with this ship. Apart from these guns, you also have the most interesting and insane gimmick a battleship can ever have in the game, and that is, it has carrier planes. Literally carrier planes on top of its deck. Look at these. These are planes, by the way. You can just launch these planes from the battleship, by the way, and these have actually pretty insane numbers. You can send 15 rockets when you shoot on a single target. 15 of these rockets, that does 5,400 damage. And the benefit of having a rockets or basically a planes on a battleship is that you can actually spot for your own self. Like if you are moving, you are isolated, there's a destroyer, you can actually use your planes to spot destroyer. You can actually use your plane to spot cruiser or even a battleship behind the island. That's a huge advantage. I can't emphasize enough that how broken that thing really is. Combine the fact that you send basically 15 rockets on a single target once you use these attack aircraft squadron. They deal almost 18,000 damage in just one volley on a unsaturated battleship. It is crazy how much damage that you can do with these planes. And I mean, you have 33% of fire chance, as you can see here below. 68mm armor penetration capacity. You can basically penetrate any battleship in the gun with, in the game with these, tiny tims, as we call these, rockets. So it basically makes Kearsarge pretty insane. Really, really insanely powerful, high damaging battleship output, man. I mean, your planes will basically launch every 114 seconds. I mean, once you launch the planes, you basically have to wait 2 minutes almost, as you can see here, 114 seconds to wait after launching a single squadron. And then you basically launch again after 114 seconds and again and again. And between that time, you can basically shoot your guns. Very decent firing range. I have George Drew Commander, which basically improves the gun feeder, which is basically main battery shell type switching time. So what you can actually do in this ship is that you shoot HE, you set fires. If he damage gone, you go and just launch the plane. You basically shoot rockets, you set permanent fires. And you can do basically again and again and again. You basically becomes a next conqueror. You basically becomes the next conqueror in the game. It is crazy. It's broken in that regard. The weakness, okay, I talked about strengths too much here. I think it seems to be more broken in many regards, right? Well, actually, it's not. Sorry, guys. So the weakness of the Kearsarge is basically The concealment is around like 13.2, 13.3. I didn't build for concealment. That's basically completely my build, okay? So the weakness of the Kearsarge is it is very, very vulnerable to HE spam. You do have very good tanky deck armor, but look at this superstructure. This is 19 millimeter. The shells, if they go and overmatch this, you're going to take massive penetration hits from battleships. I mean, it is very vulnerable. It will take a lot of damage from this superstructure. It has this gigantic carrier-like superstructure, which basically makes Kearsarge suffer from like this HE spam. And obviously, as you can see, it has 19 millimeter armor penetration capacity, which basically means that it is definitely very vulnerable against HE spam at close ranges. I mean, the armor is like side profile is pretty much thick, and like what that means is that people can actually able to take a shot at you on broadside and it will do full damage. So you have to be careful of these things. And you can able to see that the citadel is also raised above the waterline. So you are vulnerable to be getting citadel with this armor that is pretty weird. As you can see, it has this big gigantic superstructure combined with that fact basically makes Kearsarge not that good in taking like damage. It won't be able to tank a lot of damage, and you will definitely going to suffer quite a lot. Concealment is pretty bad. Maneuverability is also pretty terrible, to be honest. It has really bad turning circle, as you can clearly see. So it's not really good also in that regard. And that's why I do not like Kearsarge in that regard as well. These are the things that I like feel that if they would be a bit better, like armor point of view, I think Kearsarge would be like get to the broken tier or S tier. But this armor that it has, terrible maneuverability makes it pretty meh, in my opinion. So that's why I put it into a very strong A category. Okay, so let's talk about the Khabarovsk, which is basically a tier 10 Soviet destroyer that is available for coal. And you can buy it right now. And let me talk about its tier list category first. And in my opinion, I would put it into a maybe satisfactory tier list, or maybe even strong, because they just recently buffed the Khabarovsk. So it gets into a strong B+ category in my opinion. I'm going to be explaining the reason why Khabarovsk is strong. It used to be the strongest like destroyer in the game. But let me show you the Khabarovsk real quick here. So I do have Khabarovsk, and it has a lot of good strengths. Like it does have a lot of HP pool once I show you that. So I put the commander, Kuznetsov, obviously a very valuable commander to be honest. And you can able to see that Khabarovsk with the Kuznetsov can obviously heal back quite a lot of HP, like once it is gone down to below 10%, which is definitely possible with this 26,000 of HP pool, okay? But the strength of the Khabarovsk is that it can have these super heals that they have just recently buffed in basically probably this patch that they have done, or basically the last patch, which basically makes Khabarovsk heal back almost 30,000 HP with these 4 heals, which is very impressive to be honest. Combine the fact that it has 8 of the guns, decent main battery firing range, makes it pretty interesting for sure. So like as you can able to see 4.4 seconds of reload time. It's not like crazy high, like good reload time, but it's still good shell velocity. It does have an engine boost. HE shell is good. The AP damage is very nice, 2600, which is pretty good. I mean, if you shoot at the broadside, you will get a lot of valuable damage. With these things, with the engine boost, you can basically speed juke basically a lot of the shells that are coming towards you, and that's what the strength of the Khabarovsk really is. It does speed juke the shells very nicely. It also comes up with these torpedoes as well. Apart from these main battery guns, like let me show you here real quick. But by the way, there's that specialized repair team that helps a lot with the HP pool. I mean, honestly, you can heal back, just like I said, 20,000 to 30,000 HP, which is very nice. It does have torpedoes, okay, which I will talk about later. But I mean, you also have the legendary mod that you can use on Khabarovsk, which also improves the firing range to like 14.5 or ish or something. So that's also a very good thing. If you have a coal shape like Khabarovsk, You can also use the legendary mod on top of that. Okay, so torpedoes, you have 6-kilometer torpedoes, very low range, but they are really good for brawling against battleships. If there's a battleship behind the island, you can go and just drop these torpedoes, and they have a lot of damage, which is 19,500, which insane 0.6 kilometer detection makes them basically almost undodgeable, which is pretty nice. And that's the thing that I really like in the Khabarovsk, even though it's also a disadvantage. I mean, I would have really loved to see that they increase the range to 8 kilometers, because then they will be a lot much more versatile. But at this point, even though their damage is high, but their range is pretty low, and that's why I do not like Khabarovsk torpedoes in that state. Otherwise, damage-wise, it's pretty good. Against submarines, your depth charges is above, I won't say above average, it's just an average depth charges. Your AA defense is not going to be that impressive as well. 59 AA defense rating means basically that the carriers can go and deliver pretty much easy strikes. Tier 8 carriers have no issues as well as Tier 10 carriers. So keep that in mind, and that's basically the Khabarovsk. Your concealment is pretty meh. I mean, this is one of the negative things that I do not like about the Khabarovsk. It has pretty meh concealment. Like, I haven't built for concealment because I really don't have to. I mean, it already have pretty poor concealment. Like, I mean, because of exactly that reason, I find Khabarovsk to be only into the strong B category. You won't be able to outspot any destroyer whatsoever, even though you have really decent speed. Your rudder shift time and turning circle is also pretty terrible, by the way. Like, I have put the steering gears mod 2 just to compensate for that rudder shift. So you can imagine how bad the rudder shift really is of the Khabarovsk. So these are the things that I really do not like about Khabarovsk at all. And that's what basically makes it pretty meh in my opinion. The guns are good, Soviet shell velocity. The air defense is nothing to brag about. Apart from these things, I think Khabarovsk still has a place in my heart just because of these fast guns, and you can heal back quite a lot of the HP. And also one more thing is that it does have this 50mm side armor, which is very unusual for a destroyer, which basically means you can shatter tons of HE shells. The cruisers, most destroyers cannot even able to penetrate its armor, so it's pretty good in tanking HE shells directly onto the side armor as well, which is pretty nice. I would like to see that, but it also have a disadvantage, which is that if someone uses AP on your broadside, it will simply going to get penetrated, which basically means that it will unnecessarily take a lot of damage. So you have to be angled to make this armor thickness get immense value for your ship, to be honest. So if you do that, you're going to be just fine. You can see there is another side platings on the front, on the bow, or on the stern, and there is a couple of superstructure like 25mm, some 19mm as well, and some 13mm. So it's still vulnerable. It's not like it's like a heavy cruiser, but in a destroyer slot. But I mean, that's basically about the Khabarovsk. I think it's a good destroyer if you like Soviet gunboats. Because of this super heal that they have given, Khabarovsk gets a bit of a health back in terms of its value. So I think this is a interesting pick if you want to buy for coal. Definitely an interesting ship, and I mean, armor plating. I mean, just like I said, if you are not angled enough, you're going to take a lot of damage. Otherwise, Khabarovsk is pretty good. I really like it, and in my opinion, I will put it into a strong B+ category. So that's basically it. Let's talk about Kurfurst. So Kurfurst is basically a German Tier 10 battleship with 12 guns, 406mm guns. So where do I put the Kurfurst, okay? So the Kurfurst is gonna go straight up to basically a satisfactory B category. So let me show you and put the Kurfurst here. I mean, there are some strengths and weaknesses which I will explain about the Kurfurst, but for me, it's just a satisfactory B tier for a couple of reasons. I will show you in the game, hopefully, and will tell you that why is that. So Kurfurst is basically available for coal around like 250-ish K coal or 240-ish coal. I don't remember. But yeah, Kurfurst guns are like, these are 12 of the guns, but their sigma is only 1.8, which I'm not a fan of. These guns are not going to win any rewards in terms of its accuracy. It does have a very high hit pool points of 105k, which is very nice. It does have pretty below average torpedo protection. It does have 12 guns, which has like decent reload time, to be honest. I mean, I have built with main battery reload mod 3, which basically improves the reload time even further. The range is not that impressive, like 20.6. As you can see here, it's not that impressive. But still, because it's a brawler, you're not expected to have that much range. Also, it has the main feature of the Kurfürst is going to be that it has these secondary batteries, which are pretty interesting because they have basically 47mm and 32mm penetration capacity, which is pretty nice, okay? Air defense is nothing to brag about. It will basically going to get heavy strikes even by tier 8 carriers, so keep that in mind. You're going to surely have issues against carriers for sure in Kurfürst because it's a long ship. The HP pool, regardless of how much you have HP pool, it's not going to be good enough against that strong, like, carriers. So you have to keep that in mind. It also have really terrible firing angles, by the way. It does come up with spotter and fighter and hydro, which is 6 km German hydro, which is pretty nice. But still, combined with all of these facts, and you have normal heals, it's nothing too special. The heal cooldown time is still gonna be not even comparable to Ohio or Massachusetts, so it's pretty normal. Combined with the fact that it has poor firing angles, just make Kurfürst not that impressive. Especially the firing angles is a deal breaker, I would say. It's not that impressive. The air defense is also pretty meh as well. The turning circle is huge, 1050 meter, which means that you will show broadside almost all the time, and your armor is so thick, which is actually a good thing when you are like getting spammed by HE, but then you have a big superstructure. As you can see here, it's crazy 19mm thickness of plating. So you're going to get HE spammed pretty easily regardless of how thick your armor is. And I mean, your thick armor is basically going to make your battleship penetrate this armor easy, no problem whatsoever. So, yeah. Even though you have a German turtleback armor, which basically means that it is immune to be citadel, okay? But you're still going to take massive penetration damage from time to time if you show broadside, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. Even though it does not have torpedoes as well, so you also have to keep that in mind. Not having torpedoes, you do have that, okay, bad firing angles. So these are the things which basically makes it to be, in my opinion, not the best, but not the worst, because you still have 12 guns, you still have good secondaries, you have okay anti-air defense. As you can see here, anti-air defense is nothing to brag about, and maneuverability is poor, which I'm not a fan of. Concealment is pretty meh. I mean, I didn't build for concealment. If I would have built for concealment, it would be pretty nice, 14.1 or 3, something like that. So it's nothing too special as well. So you will be spotted from the moon, that's for sure. So with these numbers, Kurfürst seems to be, in my opinion, going to be strong. Or I would say just satisfactory tier. So I put it into the B grade, satisfactory tier. Not strong, but not too weak. It's just okay ship. If you want to have the German brawler, a premium German brawler, sure, you can have this. It's not really that bad. And yeah, that's basically the German Kurfürst. I hope you able to understand that why it's not that good in my opinion. Okay, so the next ship that I'm going to be talking about is basically going to be a ship that is a tier 10 American destroyer, the Forrest Sherman. So where do I put this ship into a tier less category? And I think in my opinion, Forrest Sherman gonna go straight up to the S tier. Broken tier. It is definitely worthy for goal, guys. It is pretty good. Let me talk about the Sherman here. So I have the Sherman loaded already, and you can able to see here that it is something to talk about because it has really high HP pool of 28,000. The strength of the Sherman is basically always going to be the sap that is very unique in the ship that they have given for a destroyer. Only 3 guns that it has, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3. So 3 guns, really fast 1.3 seconds of reload time, and it does have SAP 127mm SAP that does 2700 damage. With this reload time, your SAP DPM basically gets like crazy. It's basically the highest DPM in terms of raw numbers in the game. This is very high damage potential to basically do on destroyers. It is crazy. Combined with the fact that it also comes up with smoke, hydro, as you can see, smoke, hydro of 5 kilometer, and radar basically makes the Sherman strongest in terms of countering other destroyers. It is really good in damage farming cruisers, battleships, or destroyer, you name it. You basically smoke up, you farm cruisers or destroyers. You can push into the destroyers and basically detect them with the with this hydro. And you also have defensive AA fire, even though its AA defense isn't that impressive, but again, because of this continuous damage that it gets like 100%, which is actually not that typical. It used to get 50%, but in the case of this American destroyer, it has not 50% continuous damage, it has 100%. So it basically sort of becomes pretty decent anti-defense platform with this defensive AA fire. Basically means that you are decent against carriers, decent against, like, it's crazy strong against destroyers, and you can farm battleships with ease with using smoke and hydro combo. You also have torpedoes. You have 4 torpedoes, but only 2 torpedoes on each side, which is also another strength of the Sherman. Decent HP pool even though you don't have heal. You also have the very strongest depth charges in the game, really, like almost like 5100 damage with so many bombs and charges when you drop these depth charges on a submarine. Extremely good against submarine hunter. It is a submarine hunter without a doubt. Because of this hydro and depth charges combo, you can basically easily kill those pesky submarines. You have decent anti-defense, just like I said. Maneuverability wise, it is a bit wonky, like very weird turning circle. It could be a bit better. Rudder shift could be a bit better, but still, this is like sort of a weakness of Sherman. But overall, I think with this SAP that you shoot at, like you just pew 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 pew, and you basically just do so much damage over time in just a short amount of like it is crazy. Like within just like short amount, you're basically able to just do massive damage on superstructure of battleships. You basically kill destroyers with ease. Basically makes Sherman a really, really strong ship in my opinion. And you also have torpedoes. Say 17,900 damage torpedoes. So I mean, if there's a wounded battleship, you basically send a couple of torpedoes. Like you can able to see the set is like kind of here. These are 2 torpedoes from here, and there are these 2 torpedoes from here. With this much thing, like Sherman loaded up, it basically becomes a really, really strong, and I would say broken S tier ship in my opinion. There is clear weaknesses of the Sherman, like it does have a bad concealment, like it does get outspotted very easily. It has like 6.6 kilometer concealment, so it's not like able to outspot destroyers at all. And I think a couple of these weaknesses, like sluggishness in terms of maneuverability, makes it not, I would say, still go into the very strong. Its offensive capabilities are so strong, so good, that I would still rate it into a broken S tier. So it's pretty good for coal. The next ship is going to be Neustrashimy. Neustrashimy belongs to a very, very strong A tier category, not S tier, but A tier. So let me explain why Neustrashimy is interesting. So let me pick the Neustrashimy real quick, and there's the Neustrashimy. You can put again the Kuznetsov, and the selling point of the Neustrashimy is that it has really decent hit pool points, like it's pretty decent, almost 24,000. The main battery guns isn't that impressive, but it does have 10 kilometer torpedoes, so almost doing 18,000 damage, so they are pretty impressive. Good concealment on these torpedoes, like 1.3, 68 knots. But the selling point of the Neustrashimy are basically 2 things. Second highest concealment, almost third highest, I would say. 5.6 kilometer concealment is very, very competitive, to be honest, at this tier. It can basically outspot like almost all destroyers, except maybe there are 2 destroyers that it cannot outspot, like there's Jaeger and there's Yugumo. And I think other than that, you can basically outspot all destroyers in the game, which is a huge advantage. You have something that I want to talk about. You have basically these heels, and these are super heels. These are not normal heels. These are heels that you can basically print a entire HP out of that heel. Like if you have lost around, like if you have 23,000 HP, you lost 16,000 HP, you can heal back 8,000 HP back with this super heal. Imagine that thing. So with this heal, combined with the fact that it does have speed boost, entire defense, defensive air fire, you also have smoke, you also have 10 torpedoes that have decent reload time. It's not like it takes 2 minutes, but it's pretty okay. Makes Neustrashimy a very versatile torpedo boat, because it is almost a torpedo boat in many ways. The gun power of the Neustrashimy is not impressive, so nothing to brag about, but you can still use these guns because they have fast shell velocity. So that is pretty good thing about it. You have decent depth charges, so you are okay against submarine. It's nothing like super powerful like Sherman, but it's still pretty good. So combined with these factors, the smoke, the defensive AA, the engine boost and heal, makes Neustrashimy, with concealment by the way, makes Neustrashimy a very, very strong destroyer. In my opinion, it can basically take on destroyers with basically using the heal, and you basically shoot your guns. Even though they have terrible DPM really, but you have heal to compensate for that, that DPM. And that's why the Neustrashimy is actually pretty strong A category tier, very strong. Neustrashimy is good, and it is also very expensive, like 296k gold, but it is pretty good in my opinion. The next ship is gonna be Z44, and this is available for 228k gold, and it's a tier 9 German destroyer, and I would straight put up into a weak ship. I would not recommend this ship at all. I mean, even you can buy Azuma and Kurfurst maybe after these ships, even after these ships, once you buy these ships, then you can even buy Azuma and Kurfurst, but I think you should never ever really buy a Z44. It's really not worth it. And the reason why the Z44 isn't that impressive, as I can see here, or as you can see here, the HP pools, the survivability, I mean, it is pretty okay, 22.5k, it's okay, but right now, you can see here that it has 128mm guns, but it has terrible reload time of 4 seconds. And it also have not that impressive, I mean, it does have okay concealment, I would say 5.9 is pretty okay actually, but it has terrible entire defense, torpedoes that are fast, like they reload very quickly, but they are not that high damaging torpedoes. But the problem of the Z44 is always going to be that these guns cannot even able to do much damage on destroyers. You have such terrible firing arcs on Z44 that even if you want to shoot all of your 5 guns, let me show you here, you cannot able to do that. If you shoot these 2 guns, you have to basically, if you shoot these all guns, by the way, 5 of these guns, you have to basically show your flat broadside, which basically makes it very vulnerable to take a lot much more damage. Then you're gonna be doing damage in return. So yeah, it's pretty weird. It is a torpedo boat actually, but because you can see the strength of the Z44 is like it has very fast torpedoes that load very quickly, but they are very low damaging torpedoes, like 13,700 torpedo damage is actually pretty unimpressive. It's not gonna win any rewards. I mean, they will only do like 9,000, 10,000 damage on a tier 10 battleship, because battleships at this tier has very decent torpedo belt, and Z44 does suffer heavily like this, and that's the reason why I'm not a fan of Z44 at all. And it's a weak ship because not good gun power. Torpedo power is actually pretty good, like you reload torpedoes really quickly, but they are low damaging torpedoes. 12km range is good, but still it is not something that I really like about. Entire defense is poor, and concealment, even though it's good, but it's not gonna win any rewards, and that's why I put this ship Z44 into a only weak category. So you can see here it is only belongs to the weak category. Nothing that basically makes Z44 that impressive compared to other destroyers that you can buy for the coal. Okay, so the next ship is gonna be the Brisbane. Brisbane is gonna be a very strong ship in my opinion. So I'll put it in here in this category. Very strong cruiser. By the way, it's a tier 10 Commonwealth cruiser, as I would call it. And let me show what Brisbane is about and why I put this ship into a very strong category. Let me show you the Brisbane real quick. So Brisbane, I do have Brisbane, yeah. This is the Brisbane. You can buy it around like 240-ish, 50-ish K gold. You can go and check out in the armory. I don't need to do that. You can go and check out. So what Brisbane is, that it is literally a Minotaur. Minotaur is a tier 10 tech tree cruiser. So Brisbane is basically almost a copy of that. Armor scheme, every single thing is almost the same. But there's something about the Brisbane that I want to talk about that basically makes it very different from the Minotaur, which is a tier 10 tech tree British cruiser, light cruiser. So what makes Brisbane really, really strong is that it has a radar. It does not have smoke, unfortunately, but it does have a radar. And if you like Minotaur with radar, the Brisbane basically does that, but in a way better way than anyone can do. 12-kilometer radar. You also have hydro. You also have these super heels, just like Minotaur. But this radar is 12-kilometer radar. Even though the radar duration is only 26.4 seconds, but it's still 12-kilometer radar. And unlike Minotaur, this radar, you can basically stealth radar the DDs with the really good concealment of 9.8. So you basically caught them off guard crazy, and you basically farm them with not only AP, but you also have access to HE shells. That's right, it does have HE shells, unlike Minotaur that only has AP, and HE shells have decent fire chance, really good damage per minute. I mean, it's not like crazy damage per minute, but it's actually pretty good for a light cruiser. And with this hit pool points of 47,800 and very, very good anti defense. 94 anti defense is really, really strong. Tier 8 carriers, if they drop at you, they should be forgetting their planes afterwards. I mean, you will shot their planes so much. Even tier 10 carriers is going to lose quite a lot of planes with this entire defense, for sure. But torpedoes is also another strength of the Brisbane that I want to talk about. You basically have so many torpedoes, like you have 4 into 5 set of torpedoes. Let me show you here. So in the armor layout, you can see, not in the armor, you can see here you have 5 torpedoes here, 5 torpedoes there. You also have 5 torpedoes there. So you can send 10 torpedoes on each side, and these torpedoes are very, very nice, like in terms of firing range. Look at that range. 13.5 kilometer range, very good reload time, decent damage, decent concealment, decent speed. You basically use concealment to basically send these torpedoes onto a pushing battleship, and you basically can land quite a lot of torpedoes on a battleship. And these are also, by the way, single launching torpedoes as well. What that means is that you can basically make a weird pattern from these torpedoes by just launching them single at a time, which is another main strength of the Brisbane. With these torpedoes, with this HE firepower, it also have AP, by the way, but with this HE combined with these torpedoes, with this very good concealment and a radar combo, really makes Brisbane very strong against at least destroyers, against battleships, against carriers. Obviously, there are cruisers that can actually counter Brisbane, so keep that in mind, I would say. That's where Brisbane definitely going to suffer, but otherwise I would say Brisbane is a really, really strong ship. And I would put it simply into a category because of these strengths. Weaknesses of the Brisbane is pretty simple. It does not come up with smoke. And I mean, just like Minotaur, gigantic citadel. If you broadside, you're going to get smashed. I mean, you're going to get depth struck pretty easily. So don't get caught off guard. It is not easy to play. Let me tell you first, if you are an experienced player, then you should buy Brisbane. Otherwise, it is definitely not going to be easy to play. But if you're an experienced player, it basically easily gets into a solid, very strong A category for sure. Okay. Okay. So the next ship is going to be Marceau. So Marceau, I put it into the broken tier again. S broken tier Marceau. Just like for Sherman, Marceau is pretty powerful. Okay, let me show you something that you would like to know about the Marceau. Sorry guys. So there's the Marceau. Look at the HE-DPM. There's Smolensk, gunboat Harugumo, Forrest Sherman with HE-DPM by the way. Another gunboat obviously I have talked about. Goering, Holland, Hayate, Alvaro, Bazan, Tromp. A lot of coal ships by the way you can able to see, like this is a coal ship, this is the coal ship, this is a coal ship, this is a coal ship, this is a coal ship. Marceau is also a coal ship. Highest HE-DPM and almost rivaling to the Harugumo in terms of AP-DPM as well. This is Marceau. King in terms of HE-DPM, very high damaging HE shells, basically makes Marceau very interesting. So let me show you, this is a French destroyer by the way that you can get it for coal. And there's the Marceau. There's the Marceau. Strength of the Marceau are really good survivability, 25,000. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to talk about the Marceau. Marceau takes less damage the more damage that it takes. It has a mechanic, a saturation mechanic that's basically built on French destroyers that basically makes sure that when it takes a lot of damage onto the bow or onto a one single side of a ship, for example, if it takes damage, for example, on the bow, a lot, this will get saturated, okay? And once this gets saturated, you will take half damage. Unlike other destroyers, you will take half damage. So for example, if you have a lot of damage taken on this side of the ship, you will take half damage after some time, increasing its survivability a lot compared to other destroyers. That is a really strong thing. I can't emphasize this enough. This French saturation, as we call it, basically makes Marceau insane. And that's why its HP pool is actually theoretically 25,000, practically is around 35,000 to be honest. It's pretty high in that regard as well. The guns I already talked about, very insane. HE-DPM, very insane. AP-DPM, you basically farm battleships easy. You have 7% fire chance, crazy fire chance, crazy DPM. You basically burn down battleships pretty quickly. It is insane in taking on destroyers. And I mean, if you basically spot the destroyer at some like 5-6 kilometer range, Marceau will eat it. It will literally chew it like Sherman. Firing range with my build is 13.8, so you can basically easily able to farm battleships. You have these torpedoes that are 12 of them by the way. 12 of these torpedoes on, like, let me show you. 6 torpedoes on that side. As you can see here, 6 torpedoes like here on one side, six torpedoes on the other side, and these are having 9 kilometer range. Not that impressive range, but since it's a pure gunboat, still having that 9 kilometer firing range means that even though your concealment is 7.7 with my build, it actually gets up to 7 kilometer concealment with full build by the way. I basically made it gunboat because I can show you here. I didn't build for concealment. If I would have built that, it would go easily to 7 kilometer. For a ridiculous gunboat like that, it also have decent concealment, combined with the fact that it has decent depth charges, decent torpedoes. You basically send torpedoes, even though the reload time isn't that impressive. Basically makes Marceau a pain to deal with. It is not easy to deal with. Battleships, destroyers will definitely not going to like Marceau at all if they saw in the flank. Moreover, Marceau has really insane speeds by the way, like as I can show you here, 46.2 maximum speed, and then on top of that you have 20% speed boost. Marceau can literally go up to 55 knots with this. It is crazy fast. It is also having a defensive AA fire, so you can also able to defend against aircraft carriers, even though your anti-defense isn't that impressive. I mean, 67 is not good against tier 8s and tier 10s. It is okay against tier 8s, but it's definitely not good against tier 10s. But once you have this defensive AA, you can actually farm carrier planes pretty easily. And I mean, I can basically show you maybe a Marceau gameplay later, which basically shows you how strong this ship against carriers is, really. So these are all the factors with insane DPM that it has, basically makes Marceau a pretty simple, solid S tier. Broken. I mean, I have to say it's so strong. It should be removed from the game, should be a rare ship, but you can still buy for gold. So just buy Sherman And Marceau literally basically makes your life wonders if you are a destroyer player. Really, it's so good. Okay, after that we have a tier 9 premium destroyer, American destroyer, Halford. Halford gets into a, I would say, strong B category, okay? So Halford is strong for sure, okay? So the reason why I put the Halford strong, it's just recently available for coal. It is a bit different compared to other destroyers. Let me show you what this ship is about. So where's the Halford? Okay, there's the Halford. So I have the Halford. Okay, the strength of the Halford is basically, and the reason why I rate this ship pretty strong is, as you can see here, it does have, just like Kearsarge, it has something that no destroyer has in the game. It is unique, 100% unique for sure. If I want to give some numbers for the uniqueness, I think Marceau gets into the A tier easily. But there are some things that put it back, not to the A tier, but it into the like strong B plus tier. And the reason why, these aircrafts, as you can see, they are tiny teams, just like the Kearsarge, but the payload is almost half. I mean, it can only send 8 rockets, so you can do like 10,000 damage if you land all 8 rockets, which is pretty nice. You can spot the destroyers with your this attack aircraft, which is pretty insane gimmick. And with this gimmick that they have given, it basically makes it almost overpowered, right? Because this is really powerful gimmick. You basically smoke up, for example, you have smokes, you have speed boost, right? You also have defensive A, but I don't really care about this. I mean, air defense is already super terrible, 50 rated. On top of that, even if you put entire defense, I won't say the Halford is gonna become something like crazy powerful, but you can do that entire defensive air fire, because defensive air fire has like 100% continuous air damage, so it becomes a bit decent against tier 8s with this defensive air fire. But I'm not gonna be putting that for sure. You need speed boost. No matter what, in this ship you need speed boost. It will help a lot in a long run. The Halford gimmick is basically, the strength is that you smoke up, you launch your plane, you basically spot destroyer. Once you spot this destroyer, you basically you don't shoot on destroyer. You basically spot the destroyer with the help of these attack aircraft, and basically let every single ally team shoot at the destroyer, and you basically kill him like that. Or you maybe even do a couple of more things. I think there are a lot of tips that you can, I can give you a lot of tips and tricks to how to use this aircraft as your advantage to take on destroyers. It's a bit complicated tricks, but still, it makes it really strong, at least in that regard. But problem is, with this aircraft comes with a couple of weaknesses that I'd want to talk about. It has pretty underwhelming guns. 4 guns, 3.1 seconds of reload time is pretty bad. I mean, this is the DPM level of tier 7 and tier 8. I mean, you cannot even able to take on any fight even against even Z44. I talked about the Z44 earlier. You cannot even take a gunfight with this ship. This ship can still gunfight a lot easier compared to Halford. Okay, so it's not going to win any rewards in that regard. The Halford has poor DPM in terms of its guns. It has poor torpedoes, like high reload time of 85 seconds for just 5 torpedoes, only 5 torpedoes, even though they have decent torpedo damage and range. I mean, torpedoes itself are pretty good, but you only have 5 of these torpedoes with 5 seconds of reload time means that it will take a lot of time, torpedoes to launch like after 85 seconds. So it's a bad thing. Your depth charges again is very impressive. You are good against submarines, that's for sure. Once you start to use these depth charges, you will basically almost have a guaranteed chance of killing a submarine. That's fine, but your entire defense is poor. Your maneuverability is okay, but your concealment is also poor. Like 6.1 kilometer concealment for a gun power like that kind of sucks. And that's the reason why I put Halford. Even though it's a unique ship, it does have a fighter planes. You can spot ships with these attack rockets. You can even be able to shoot at battleships. You basically set fires on battleship. You let them damage on the fire from this plane, and then you basically shoot your HE shells and you set permanent fires. Sure, you can do all that stuff, but still, the DPM is bad. The torpedoes are bad. the concealment is not impressive either, makes it not the best. And I will put it, in my opinion, pretty much a B strong, B plus category. No problem whatsoever. Halford looks good at strong tier. No problems here. Okay, I have so many ships left. Hopefully I will be able to do it like within 15 minutes. This is going to be a long video, so yeah, please check out the chapters. It is understandable that it will take long for sure, because I'm talking about a lot much more strengths and weaknesses in detail, just like I said in the title. So there's that. The next ship that I'm going to be talking about is Alvaro de Bazan, a Spanish destroyer that is available for coal. Okay, so where do I put that ship? So Alvaro de Bazan, I would put that into a satisfactory B, I would say. Seems to be pretty okay if I put it into the satisfactory. I mean, I want to put it into a strong ship as well. It does have a bit of a gimmicks that makes it a bit strong, but still, I would put it into the satisfactory. I think it seems to be okay here. It does have decent strengths, but it also have very glaring weaknesses, which I will explain. Where is the Alvaro de Bazan? So there's the Alvaro de Bazan. Okay, so Alvaro de Bazan comes up with a unique thing in the game like no destroyer has currently, I would say, for its tier. At tier 10, it does have access to something that you usually get on a super ships, okay? This is a super ship gimmick given to a tier 10 destroyer, which is a burst fire mode. So what this burst fire mode does, okay, so you have, if you use this burst fire, okay, you have basically able to launch 3 bursts, or basically 3 salvos from like in between 1 second. So you're basically going to have a 1 second of reload time for 3 of the burst, okay? Even though your reload time is 4.6 seconds, but if you use this burst fire, you're basically able to launch 3 salvos in between 3 seconds, or at least 4 seconds, okay? Which is very, very good. So if you want to basically kill a very low HP wounded destroyer, burst fire is really, really amazing. I must say it does kill destroyer with ease, no problem whatsoever. Or even if you want to disengage, okay, and you shoot those burst fires on basically a right time, you basically maybe set permanent fire on the battleships, even though they want to disengage, even though you want to disengage as well. So burst fire can work in clutch at some point. Very, very effective thing. But that's actually one of the strengths of the Alvaro de Bazan. It also have 8 torpedoes, but they are really something that I would put it into a disadvantage category. Entire defenses also I would put it into a disadvantage category, or it has a glaring weaknesses that I will explain. Okay, guns are pretty okay, I would say. Decent HE DPM and AP DPM. I mean, it's not gonna win any rewards, but it is pretty okay. Let me show you the Alvaro de Bazan in terms of its DPM numbers. So here you can see the Alvaro de Bazan, at least compared to these destroyers, Marceau, Small and Harugumo, Gearing, Forest Sherman, Holland, Hayate, Alvaro de Bazan is actually pretty low, having only 170 HE/DPM, so it is actually not that interesting in that regard. Terrible, I would say, DPM, damage per minute, and that's the reason why it's not that impressive. But only the make or the gimmick of the Alvaro de Bazan is this burst fire mode. This can literally make or break the ship, and that's what exactly this ship is for. If you like this sort of gameplay, I think Alvaro de Bazan is interesting. But apart from this strength, there are weaknesses. Not the best of the DPM. I mean, you basically trying to be a gunboat, but you don't have this like damage per minute of the gunboat. You have torpedoes that basically are pretty much tier 8, tier 9 category of torpedoes. They are also pretty unimpressive. Very, very slow torpedoes, even though their detection is good of 1.1, but not that impressive. Anti-defense is weak. Tier 8 carriers can screw you up. Tier 10 carriers will just literally kill you if they come from time to time, unless you smoke up. Obviously, you have smokes, which is good. You do have speed boost, which is good. But other than that, there's nothing that basically makes Alvaro de Bazan good at all. Your concealment is around like 6.2 kilometers, which is actually pretty terrible, to be honest. So you basically get outspotted by so many destroyers as well. So These are all the factors that basically makes Alvaro de Bazan pretty much a average ship, even though sometimes from time to time I would say this burst fire can come in handy, and this is the reason why you should buy the ship if you want to buy Alvaro de Bazan for just this unique burst fire mode. So in my opinion I would say this ship goes into a pretty much satisfactory B category. Okay, the next ship that I'm going to talk about is basically a Duke of York. So Duke of York is a tier 7. Okay, it's one of the tier 7 lower tier battleships in the game. So where do I put the Duke of York? I would say Duke of York gets into a B category. It is available for like 107 or 101k gold. Only 100k gold, okay? It's not that expensive. But still, is it really worth it to spend that much gold like on a Duke of York? Let me show you what that ship is about first. This is Duke of York. I do have this ship in the game. So what is the strength of the Duke of York that might makes you think that it is worth it for gold, okay? So, well, the thing is that Duke of York has, as I can show you here, 2 guns, 4 guns. Yeah. Wait, what the hell? Okay, it does have a weird armament. Like it does have 5 guns on the front and 3 guns on the back. So quite a lot of guns. The firing range is okay for its tier, like 18.2. I'm not gonna say it's really impressive, but it's not that bad either. It's okay for at this tier. But what makes this thing interesting is that, well, it does have a hydro for a battleship at this tier. Now look at that. You also come up with extra heals. Not extra heals, by the way. These are normal heals, but they are improved heals if I'm not wrong. But it does come up with a normal hydro, which is very atypical for a battleship at this tier. Especially this British battleship. I don't think so there's any battleship that comes up with hydro. It's pretty nice to have a hydro at this tier for sure. And you have also with this decent HE, like 6100 HE alpha is pretty nice as well. So combined with the fact that it does have hydro, decent airstrikes as well, you can basically send these airstrikes on submarines and can do pretty decent damage, makes Duke of York actually pretty okay, I would say, pretty good. But the reason why I don't like Duke of York, this is my personal opinion, is that it has this pretty bad citadel, if I can show you here. Like it does have a raised citadel and not that much tanky either. Look at that, only 381 millimeter armor here, 381 millimeter armor here, 356 millimeter armor here. Not gonna win any rewards whatsoever. You are very vulnerable to take massive citadel damage if you broadside, and it does suffer heavily like in that way. And also the armor isn't that impressive at this tier. Like tier 7 you only have access to 26 millimeter armor. You are basically fully going to get overmatched from all the battleships that has 380 millimeter guns. So you cannot able to tank yourself in this armor. This armor is pretty poor, very vulnerable to get overmatched. And I mean at this tier I would say because of this armor, and you literally going to get overmatched. Your survivability is just not feel to be that good. Your torpedo protection isn't that impressive either. Your guns, by the way, these are only 356 millimeter guns. They cannot really overmatch any battleship at this tier. Like someone has to use 380 millimeter guns to overmatch this, but you cannot overmatch them either. Like you have only 356 millimeter caliber, so AP is gonna be pretty worthless if you shoot on their when they are angled. So you have to shoot HE from time to time, which is actually pretty good. Fire chance is very impressive, 41%. So these are the things that really makes Duke of York a bit interesting, but with the weaknesses that, just like I said, makes Duke of York not that interesting ship. Even though if you want to buy a premium ship at this tier, and if you are new to the game, I think Duke of York is not that bad in terms of earning credits sometimes. Especially you have a hydro, which can come handy. You have decent anti-defense, I would say. you actually have decent anti-defense, to be honest. At this tier, you have a 79 rated anti-defense, means that at least when you are facing tier 6 carriers, you can actually able to shoot down quite a lot of their planes. Well, they're going to take massive losses from dropping you, at least in a Duke of York. Tier 8 carriers, on the other hand, can definitely do some problems, but still your anti-defense is pretty adequate, just like that. So overall, Duke of York seems to be in a pretty much satisfactory. I won't put it strong. There are some weaknesses, like 356mm guns are not impressive. Armor is not impressive, makes it to the satisfactory B category. Okay, so next ship is going to be the Tulsa, Tier 9 heavy American cruiser. So Tulsa will go into a, well, I would say strong B plus, I would say. I mean, I'm not a fan of Tulsa. I want to put it into the satisfactory, but it does have something going for it. So let me show you that what is Tulsa. So where's the Tulsa really? I will show you the Tulsa real quick, and I think it should be there. So Tulsa is a tier 9 heavy cruiser. It basically kind of works or basically performs like a tier 9 Des Moines, okay? Tier 9 Salem, okay? So the guns, it does have 203mm guns, basically comparable to Des Moines guns. They're basically copy-paste Des Moines guns, but the guns are basically 6 of them, 4 on the bow, 2 on the stern, so they're not like 9, so less turrets. At this tier, it does also, just like Des Moines, comes up with radar, but unfortunately only 9km radar, which I'm not a fan. Like, this is sort of a weakness that I felt for the Tulsa. I would love to see a 10km radar, but for some reason they have given a 9km radar, which kind of sucks, even though it does have a very high consumable action time of 46.2 with my build, which is pretty nice. You also have access to hydro and defensive A. You have normal heals, so that's pretty much the Tulsa is about. It's basically a tier 9 Des Moines, but the damage per minute is a bit weird, like 5.1 seconds of reload time seems to be okay, but it's only 4 of the guns on the bow and only 2 of the guns of the stern. Only 6 guns. Anti-defense is okay, I would say. I mean, if you put defensive AA fire, like if I do here, like if I put defensive AA fire, it can help a lot. Definitely can help a lot. You can take on tier 8 carriers very easily with defensive AA. Tier 10 carriers, not a lot, but still it's not bad. Your concealment is 9.5, and that's the reason why I really felt that if the Tulsa has 10km radar, and if it self-radar the destroyers, Tulsa would be super nice, but I think they didn't done that. Maybe for the balance purposes, I can understand, but then there is a Brisbane that basically stealth radar like crazy for like 2-3 kilometers away. Like, it has a 12km radar, Tulsa has like only 9km, kind of sucks. So Tulsa, with this, not the best of the HE DPM and survivability point of view, it does have less HP. 42,000 isn't that impressive, I would say. Basically makes it, I would say, only a satisfactory tier, or I would say strong tier. I could put it into the satisfactory, but since you do have a radar, you can counter destroyers effectively, you have decent anti-air defenses. I just give some value to Tulsa, so it's not that bad. I mean, it's a Des Moines guns, so you can take on cruisers to cruisers easily for sure. You can take on destroyers, but against battleships, you are very vulnerable, by the way. I haven't talked about the Tulsa armor here real quick. Tulsa armor is basically completely covered with 27mm. So, and it also have a big citadel as well, just like Des Moines, slightly above waterline. This armor is very bad. At this tier, 27mm armor means just that, like, you're just going to get overmatched super easily, no problem whatsoever. It's not 30mm armor, by the way. So it is definitely pretty bad, and that's why I would say strong or maybe satisfactory, but it's just up to you. I would put it even into the satisfactory. This is my opinion, but a good Des Moines player can basically make it strong, for sure. A good Des Moines player who has a lot of games in the Des Moines can make Tulsa, seems to be into a strong B plus category, for sure. Okay, next ship is going to be Tromp, a coal ship that is a, what do I call it? Yeah, Dutch destroyer. I think the only Dutch destroyer in the game right now for coal, and I would put it into a, I would say satisfactory or strong. I would put it strong. Okay, I would put this Tromp into a strong B plus category. Let me show you this Tromp real quick. So this is strong, a Dutch destroyer. So what is the gimmick of the Tromp? Tromp have not the best of the DPM. It also have only Meh torpedoes. Never mind. I think I should just put it into onto a satisfactory. I think I don't like Tromp really much. I mean, it does have a bit of a gimmicky thing, which basically makes it pretty okay, but not the best in terms of DPM on these guns, even though they have decent firing arcs, like fast shell velocity guns, pretty good. Torpedoes does have some range, 12 kilometer, but only 6 of them, 3 on one side and 3 on one side, so not enough torpedoes, kind of sucks. But the Tromp has access to airstrikes. So basically, what these airstrikes are that you basically, within 10 kilometer, if you launch these airstrikes, you can deal some decent damage on any battleship or destroyer. I mean, go and check out the video that what are these airstrikes if you really don't know. But these airstrikes are a bit interesting because you have so many bombs in payload. They do not work like carriers, by the way. You basically drop them like the submarine airstrikes, okay? The ASW based airstrikes that you usually use against submarines, they exactly work like that, but they in return throw HE bombs instead of ASW attacks. So they are kind of like that. It takes a bit of a time, like in a couple of seconds, you will be able to drop these HE bomb airstrikes and you will land some damage because of those bombs hitting onto the superstructure or something. So penetration is actually pretty low, 20 millimeter armor pen, but still, if you hit on the superstructure of the battleships, you can get fires. Fire chance is very, very high. Like for so many bombs that you drop, you still have a decent fire chance. So with these bombs hitting on sometimes even a destroyer, that can be sometimes funny and a meme worthy, I would say. So Tromp is something like that. Concealment isn't gonna win any rewards, but it is actually having 5.8 kilometer, which is pretty decent actually. At this tier, it's right now I'm saying like with my build it's 6.6, but it's actually very stealthy, 5.8, which is actually nice. So you can outspout quite a lot of destroyers, but still you don't have something like, you don't have smoke. You do have a defensive AFI, but your AA is terrible. I would say it only has like 3.5 kilometer firing range. It's like very, very short range, and not a single flak out of those, out of those AA. Basically means that there's no flak to fear for a carrier. So only you are relying on continuous damage with this Tromp. You do have access to very fast speed, emergency engine power, engine boost, whatever you call it. But apart from that, I mean, the guns are not impressive, the torpedoes are not impressive. You have this very gimmicky airstrike that you can use here. Like, let me show you where. Okay, this gimmicky airstrike that you drop on battleships to set fires, and you basically stealth drop them because that's basically the gimmick of Tromp. And apart from that, Tromp does not give anything special. It's not the best against destroyers. I mean, it's not best against cruisers. You can farm battleship, sure, but it's exactly that. It's like you just a weird battleship farmer, or maybe you just kill DDs from time to time, and that's about it. There's nothing else too special about the Tromp apart from this airstrike. And that's why I put it into a clearly satisfactory B category. Okay, so the next ship is going to be Salem. Salem definitely, in my opinion, goes to very strong A. Salem is a coal ship that basically is exactly a copy-paste Des Moines, by the way. This is Salem. So Salem basically works like Des Moines, okay? 203 millimeter guns, very good HE-DPM, very good AP-DPM at this tier. Des Moines hull, 30 millimeter armor, does have a big like citadel, vulnerable above waterline. You does have a decent HP pool of 49,000. Absolutely everything same. Concealment is same, maneuverability is actually the same. Anti-defense, I think, almost the same. But what Salem have in its arsenal compared to Des Moines, that it does have a permanent defensive airfire, separate. It also have radar, but it's not like Des Moines radar, okay? It is actually a nerfed version of Des Moines radar. It's actually a 8.5 kilometer radar. So actually not that impressive, right? Like 8.5 kilometer radar compared to 10 kilometer radar, it's definitely a huge nerf. And you have really high concealment, like 10.9 kilometer concealment, which basically means that you get spotted from destroyers like very easily without you can able to counter them. And destroyers can run away very easily from this radar. So what's going to be the strength of the Salem? Well, Salem, at least compared to Des Moines, have a repair party, which is a super heal that you typically don't get on cruisers. Especially on cruiser like Salem, it is pretty interesting and insane at the same time, because Salem has really strong firepower against cruisers, destroyers, and even battleships. And I mean, you can tank a lot of HP because of this specialized repair team. You can literally heal all the fire damage that cruisers might do on you. And this is actually a huge advantage in my opinion, because there are some light cruisers that literally rely on fire damage, and Salem basically completely mitigates that. Even though you do have a nerfed radar, I mean, you can also use hydro, but I don't think so anyone will use hydro compared to surveillance radar. So this super heal basically makes it really fun to play and really strong for this tier, in my opinion. With these guns that Des Moines have, these guns are very infamous. I really love these guns. If you're able to make Salem work, it will just do wonders. Just like Des Moines, but it is a lot tankier Des Moines, I would say, because of this super heal. And that's why I would put the Salem into a very strong category, A tier. It is definitely very strong. Even though you do get overmatched at this tier pretty much, but if you know what you're doing in Salem, and the good Des Moines players know what they're doing, Salem will just do exactly that. Will definitely a worthy gold ship for sure. Sorry guys, so I'm going to be talking about the next ship, which is U-4501. So what this ship, this is a submarine, the only submarine that you are getting for coal, and I would put it again a very strong ship. Okay. U-4501 basically comes into a very strong ship at like A tier, and let me explain why. So let me show you the U-4501. So the reason why this German boat, this U-boat, the submarine, the only coal submarine, is really strong. As a submarine player, you definitely know that underwater maneuvering is so much valuable. And well, this ship has the highest submerged speed in the game. 38 knots of speed underwater is crazy, okay? Combined with the fact that it has probably the highest concealment, even compared to destroyers. 5.4 kilometer concealment is massive. Underwater speed is the highest. It also have these, homing torpedoes, only homing torpedoes, which is a huge advantage. And obviously not having alternate torpedoes is also a sort of a disadvantage, but it does have a homing torpedoes, which are basically 10 of them, 4 on the bow, 6 on the stern, which is very nice. They deal almost 10,000 damage. And this sonar is a bit special in U-4501, apart from all the other strengths, okay, that I'm talking about. So this sonar, when it pings onto a target, it has a ping width which is like gigantic. It's so big that once you have another ping ready and sent onto the same target, your chance of hitting double ping is super easy in this ship. And once you have double ping, you know that the homing will get a lot much more aggressive, and you will have more chance of hitting those torpedoes on that target. Extremely powerful, even though it has a slow 12 seconds of reload time, but these pings are really powerful. I can't emphasize enough, with these pings you can easily get double pings, no problems. The speed is pretty good. The width, you can see it is really big, like 15 meter of ping width, which is massive, I would say, compared to the other normal ping width. To be honest, ping velocity, ping width are pretty impressive, even though the maximum range isn't that impressive compared to U-4501, which is a Tech 3 German, the submarine. But still, These powerful torpedoes, a lot of them, you do have, stern torpedoes, unlike U-2501, which is another huge advantage. And then combined with the fact that you also have decent dive capacity with really impressive dive capacity recharge rate like crazy, basically makes U-4501 really, really strong submarine. I mean, if you get spotted by a destroyer and destroyer maybe trying to basically come on top of you, you basically go underwater and you basically just move full speed 38 knots, and the destroyer cannot do anything about it. Like, destroyer have no chance. They cannot do anything about you whatsoever. With this amazing concealment, with these amazing torpedoes, basically makes U-4501 a very, very solid submarine to buy in the game. Absolutely recommended. Absolutely amazing. Really, really good. U-4501, you will love it. So if you love submarines, U-4501 is really impressive. Okay, the next ship is going to be Marco Polo. Marco Polo comes up into a very strong. Okay. So what I believe here, this ship is it's an Italian battleship that has access to SAP shells. Okay, so this ship, in my opinion, will get into a category of I would say strong B plus, or I would say satisfactory even. I would say satisfactory. Okay, let me explain why Marco Polo is, in my opinion, a satisfactory. It's available for 228k gold. It's a tier 9 battleship, which is an Italian one, having access to SAP shells, just like I said. So what does it have? What does it bring to the table? Where is the... Just give me a second. There's the Marco Polo. Okay, so Marco Polo, unlike other battleships, have access to SAP 406mm guns. They do a lot of damage. 14,100 damage. Armor penetration capacity is 102mm. Impressive guns. By the way, it also have 1.9 Sigma, which also means that they have decent accuracy as well, which basically makes Marco Polo very, very strong. So combined with the fact, these SAP shells, if you hit onto a Minotaur, especially Minotaur, you're basically going to death strike this person or this ship, because you can basically easily able to penetrate its armor. Minotaur has 102mm citadel armor. Marco Polo has 102mm armor penetration capacity. It's a special thing to talk about, so I said this in front of this video. So there's exactly that. You do have access to AP, also pretty strong, fast shell velocity AP with SAP, combined with the fact that it has, decent armor, as you can see here. 55mm deck armor, which is very, very tanky actually. 70mm armor. This basically means that you're basically able to shatter a lot of HE shells. Okay, so that basically makes the Marco Polo a very powerful ship. But the reason why I would put it still into a satisfactory tier is because, well, even though you do have a spotter plane, like other Italian battleships, it does not have access to smoke. For some reason, they have not given this ship a smoke, maybe for the balancing reason that it has so much powerful SAP, I would say. But the another weakness of the Marco Polo is that it does have only 69,000 HP. It's actually into a lowest areas in terms of HP. It's not going to win any rewards. It's really not that good actually. So survivability point of view, in terms of HP, it's pretty bad. Torpedo protection is okay, nothing to brag about. Secondaries are not SAP like Napoli. Napoli have SAP based secondaries. The main battery guns are pretty okay. Reload time is a bit higher, but it still can be sometimes wonky, just like battleship guns. Battleship guns tend to be a bit more wonkier sometimes, so it does happen in Marco Polo from time to time. Terrible firing range for tier 9 battleship, only 19 km is definitely sucks. Like, it sucks a lot. Anti-defense is also pretty weak. You don't have smoke, so you have terrible anti-defense, means that you cannot able to defend yourself from airstrikes. You have turning circle is okay, but concealment is also like, if you build for concealment, you can get it to like 13.3 or 13.1. It's not going to win any rewards, but it is definitely a bit better. But overall, I would say Marco Polo is definitely satisfactory, but there are glaring weaknesses like terrible HP pool, vulnerable citadel, by the way. I mean, let me show you the citadel, by the way, here. I mean, it's look at that. This is a armored deck slope, and it has only 25mm armor. So basically, can easily get overmatched from the angle. If someone shoot at you like this, or someone shoot at you like this, any plunging battleship shells will definitely going to make Marco Polo getting a citadel. So not that good in terms of armor. Even though you have a lot of armor that basically shatter a lot of HE shells, it is still vulnerable. You will take a lot of penetration damage because of the 70mm, 60mm, 320mm armor. So keep that in mind. But overall, I would say Marco Polo is okay, but it is not that like very strong or overpowered at all. Okay guys, so the next ship that I'm going to be talking about is going to be the Groningen. I think I already put it in the very strong A tier list. So this is the ship that I will put like from here to here, and the reason why this Dutch destroyer Groningen is pretty good, and let me show you the reason why. So here's the ship in my port in the game. The thing about the Groningen, or the main selling point, is that it only has actually 4 guns. Funny enough, it does not have also access to torpedoes, but at tier 9 this Dutch destroyer has damage per minute unlike anything in the game. Like, it is absurdly too much crazy. Okay, the firing range is pretty okay, 12.4, but these guns with 1.5 reload time is so much powerful with this damage per minute output that it basically kind of compensates with even though it does not going to have torpedoes. Okay, I mean, that's a huge setback already, and that's why it's not overpowered or broken, I would say, but it is still very, very strong. It also have access to basically these smokes, which is basically the American smokes, by the way, and you have 4 of them with this build that I have. I mean, I have improved demolition expert on that as well. So your fire chance is basically pretty impressive, 10.5. And I mean, if you are throwing like so many shells on a ship, well, Groningen will become absolutely absurd. With this 10.5% fire chance, with these fire, flags, along with the reload time on on these guns, with pretty good actually, hydro, which is 5 kilometer, also have defensive AFR, and I mean the entire defense at this tier for Groningen is probably the best. This is probably the best entire destroyer at this tier. It will definitely going to shred or shoot down planes with defensive AFR. It is definitely very impressive. It is definitely slightly lower than Holland, but it is very comparable. With this entire defense, Groningen become pretty amazing in taking on carriers. And with these depth charges, which is okay, I'm not going to say they are that impressive in terms of their maximum damage, but they are still pretty much good enough to basically do the job against submarines. But the thing about the Groningen is that with this hydro and smoke combined with the fact that you can have this absurd DPM makes Groningen a very strong as a destroyer killer, as well as farming battleships or heavy cruisers that are pushing towards you. And you do have smoke, which you can basically make a lot of value out of. And that is the impressive thing about this ship in general. So I really, really love this ship because of that absolutely good reasons. I love this ship with this class Jensen, which is a special seasoned commander that I can use, which basically gives even more better demolition expert. You can go and check out in the army, you can have this captain in excess. And that's why, in my opinion, with these all powerful things combined with these strengths, I rate the Groningen very strong. Obviously, the weakness is not having amazing concealment. It's like having 6.3 or 6.4 kilometer concealment with the max build. In my build, I didn't put the concealment. I actually rather build it for fearless brawler, main battery and A especially, basically full powerful gun build. So I just opt out of concealment. If the destroyer trying to shoot me, I can shoot him back and basically literally kill him in seconds. So Groningen is pretty impressive in that. The speed is not that amazing. It does not have even access to speed boost. So you have to basically rely on the space speed. And I mean, you even though do have smokes, but the worst like consumer like 7.1, at least in my build, combined with the fact that not having speed boost is a bit of a lacking thing that I do not like about the Groningen, and obviously the torpedoes also not out there, which is obviously a really bad thing if the battleship actually finally pushes you so much that you cannot disengage even. So this is one of the things that you should be taking care of, and other than that, Groningen is definitely a very solid package. I feel that it's going to be really fun to play once you pick this ship for coal, and I think I would recommend that ship for sure. So Groningen, solid, very strong A tier. Okay, sorry guys. So the next ship is going to be, well, the Carnot, a tier 9 premium French heavy cruiser, which I will put it into a category that is, I would say, satisfactory, I would say, yeah. I could even put it into weak, I would say, because there are something that I do not like in Carnot. So let me explain that why this French heavy cruiser is not that impressive. It is impressive in some way. I can put it into the satisfactory category that basically makes it a bit better. Just give me a second. Yeah, seems to be okay at this tier. Satisfactory seems to be just fine. So why I would put it into the C category, the B category, satisfactory. So let me show you why. So the reason why Carnot is not that impressive, at least in terms of impressiveness, it does have insanely high HP pool, like almost 71,000 with the captain, which improves the survivability. Basically makes it almost 71,000 of hit pool. It's almost like rivaling to those of battleships at tier 9, which is pretty great, like crazy good. The guns, it does have 305mm guns, but I mean the reload time of the Carnot is basically base 25 seconds. I mean typically, if you look at maybe the Agir has basically what? Base 20 seconds of reload time, but the Carnot basically not having that much impressive reload time of 25 seconds. Okay, so the thing about the Carnot here is that very bad reload time. The guns are like having a base 25 seconds of reload time, does not make much sense. I mean, there is Agir and Azuma that has base 20 seconds of reload time. It has 25 seconds of reload time, which basically makes it pretty unimpressive. Even though the HP pool is pretty impressive, but it's only like 7,000-8,000 HP higher, which is kind of advantage and okay. Even though its armor is a bit better, I would say. Like Carnot has a bit weird plating, like 36mm of armor here. So it can bounce quite a lot of shells, like even you know, all 510mm guns or lower, like it will be able to bounce quite a lot of shells with this 36mm of deck armor. But it in broadside, at least it's still going to have 30mm armor thickness, which is definitely vulnerable to get overmatched by 430mm guns or plus. So it's not that impressive still. Very gigantic superstructure. You can see that the superstructure laying down onto the ship all over the place. It's kind of weird, and that's why in terms of survivability, even though it looks pretty good in terms of HP pool, it is not that impressive in my opinion. The reload time is bad. The airstrikes are pretty average. I mean, the same at what Cruiser used to have. Not special gimmick. Anti-defense is above average for sure. You can actually shoot down tier 8 planes, but still, I'm not a fan of Carnot in general. It does not come with anything special. Like, I mean, Agir does have something special like torpedoes. Azuma has something special like its HE shells. Carnot has, the special thing about the Carnot itself is basically it has engine boost. So you basically a speed juker sort of a cruiser. You have a maximum speed, if I'm not wrong, well, 34.5 knots. So you can go into a, like having a maximum speed of like 38 or 39 knots. Maybe 40 knots if I'm not wrong. So you just have this gimmick of engine boost compared to, you know, the Azuma and Agir. And other than that, the guns are basically pretty much the same, like pretty similar in terms of how Agir and Azuma guns are performing. So nothing too much different. And that's the reason why I am not a fan of Carnot. I don't like this ship in particular because it also does not have anything else that basically makes it very special about it. Even though it is a French cruiser, having a speed boost. So other than that, it's just a basic package. If you want to basically have some time having this insane speeds where you just basically go from flank to flank, pushing from the 9-10 line or trying to farm damage on those corners where the enemy team is pushing, well, Carnot might be an interesting pick, but still it does not have anything special that I will feel or make it look like gets into a strong or very strong tier list in my opinion. So for me, this is gonna go like into a satisfactory. I won't say weak, it's actually not that weak. I initially thought that maybe it's not that impressive, so I would put it into a weak category, but at least that's not the case. That's Carnot is not that bad, simple as that. Okay, I have only a couple of ships left, so let's talk about the Flint. Tier 7 American light cruiser. Again, I think the Flint is still not that bad. I think at tier 7, Flint for me feels like still I would say strong. I mean, totally depends on the matchmaking. Flint, let me show you the Flint. So I have the Flint, and hopefully I will show you here. So this is the Flint. This is actually expensive coal ships, by the way. Like, Flint is definitely an expensive ship, and I mean, in terms of armor, it's basically an Atlanta-based cruiser. I mean, if you know Atlanta does have radar. It's basically a light cruiser. As you can see, armor plating is pretty bad, like overmatched, like crazy overmatchable, like nothing to brag about at all. Also have pretty bad armor, like Citadel armor as well, vulnerable to get Citadel as well. So I mean, Flint in that regard is pretty bad, but I would still rate it strong because it does have a smoke, which I can show you here. So this smoke generator is basically a gearing smoke, a smoke that reloads quickly once your smoke run out. And I mean, if you stay in smoke, you have firing range of 12.4, which is okay. At this tier, I would really love to see 13-ish kilometer, but your DPM is pretty good, 5 seconds of reload time, 12 of these guns, so that's pretty good. And because of exactly that, and you have destroyer dispersion ellipse onto these main battery, so that's also pretty good. So I mean, because of these of the things like that Flint has with a hydro or defensive A, although A defense at this tier is just average, it's nothing too good, nothing too bad. Tier 6 carriers will actually lose a couple of planes, but tier 8 carriers will love to drop you. To be honest, tier 8 carriers will just going to hit you hard. Flint does not have that much good AA. So with hydro, with the smoke combo, you can basically smoke up farm ships that are pushing, and you can disengage back with these torpedoes. I mean, you also have these 9.2 kilometer torpedoes, and that's what makes Flint actually a decent cruiser, I would say. Sometimes it could be, yeah, like it totally depends on matchmaking. If you are, for example, in Flint, if you are in, for example, let me show you here. So this is Flint, right? I've put it into the strong category. If you are top tier, you are strong because your firing range is pretty okay when you, like at this tier. But once you are bottom tier, then you might go even to the satisfactory or maybe sometimes even in a weak category, because Flint does not have heal, and heal is absolutely needed. It does not come with that, even though you do have decent smoke. So I can put it even into satisfactory category as well, but still I don't know why I feel that this coal ship, if played effectively, because I have played Flint very effectively, even with this nerf firing range, it will still do wonders. I still believe that the damage per minute that it has, it's pretty good, and you can farm battleships with ease, and firing arcs is not that impressive. Like it's literally a destroyer shells, 127mm guns. They're not going to be that impressive, but still, I mean, it's like a destroyer, but having cruiser, or I would say way much higher DPM than that. And other than that, it's not having anything special, but the smoke basically makes it really nice. And for me, I think if you want to play tier 7, matchmaking, and you want to buy a decent coal ship, I think Flint is a good choice. But totally depends on matchmaking. I'm telling you, this is very much matchmaking reliant. So keep that in mind, and then you should pick that ship. pretty much. Concealment is pretty good, so you don't worry about that. If you build it, this basically goes below 10 kilometer, which is pretty nice. So you can basically not going to get outspotted by normal cruisers, that's for sure. So that's basically the Flint. Okay, so the next ship is going to be pretty interesting. So it's going to be Carrier, and this Carrier, in my opinion, is going to go to the strong B+ category. This is Max Immelmann, the German tier 10 aircraft carrier. Let me show you here. So this is Max Immelmann, okay? Okay, so what's the strength of the Max Immelmann, or what's the power of the Max Immelmann? Well, unlike anything in the game, it does have the most powerful skip bombers in the game. High damaging bombs that basically skip on the water, okay? If you go and check out the gameplay of Max Immelmann, they basically skip into the water, and this gives some advantages to a carrier like this, okay? Whenever you just drop these skip bombers, okay, you're basically going to drop these bombs at a further distance, like it's gonna be 3 or 4 kilometers away from a particular ship. This gives numerous advantages. The first advantage is that these planes usually don't, get shot down that easily, because they don't get into the middle of the aura, which is the strongest aura of all ships. Like, let me show you AA defense here. So if you can see, there are two, this is 2 auras. Let me show you maybe a Brisbane. So what I meant by that, okay? So you can see there is 2 auras, okay? There is that medium aura, there is long range aura, or sometimes you get even short range aura, okay? So basically what happens, a lot of the AA that is basically situated onto the medium range AA guns, which is the strongest AA guns, by the way, bypassed by these skip bombers, because skip bombers skip in such a way that they are almost outside of this 4 or 3 kilometers away, okay? This basically gives this ship, Max Immelmann, planes a bit more tankiness on these bombs, and these bombs does also pretty high damage, like 11,000 damage per bomb is also very, very high. So these 4 bombs in a single attack flight, like 4 bombs doing 11,000 damage, you can understand that where these damages are going, like you can literally do like 12, 13, 15k damage in just a single strike. That is pretty impressive, right? And you also have so many planes on deck. As you can see, it has 26 aircraft on deck already. And you also have very good regen time of almost a minute. Basically means you can have tons of these skip bombers at your disposal, so you don't fear of getting deplaned very quickly. Especially, at least if you are an average CV player, you're not going to get having a fear of getting deplaned. You will be just fine, especially because of these skip bombers can able to bypass that 4 or 3.5 kilometer aura by skipping those bombers at longest distance. And you can go and check out, there are certain distances where you can just send these skip bombers from time to time. So that's the advantage Max Immelmann has. Also, you have torpedo bombers. Torpedo bombers are like pretty good as well. 4 of these torpedoes. You also have tons of aircraft on deck again. You have faster regen time of 64 seconds. So torpedo damage is, I would say, average. It's not that impressive, I would say. 4,700 is just okay, and I would say impressive. But when you are sending 4 of these torpedoes in at least 2 strikes on a battleship, you can do like 25 to 35,000 damage, maybe 30,000 damage on a battleship, which is pretty good. And you have a decent chance of flooding, so you can do pretty good with this decent arming distance as well, 423 meters. So that is pretty nice about the Max Immelmann. Still, it's not better than Malta. Malta is definitely way much more versatile against destroyers, because Max Immelmann does not have rocket planes, as you can see, which basically gives him a bit of a disadvantage, even though you can even skip these bombs on a destroyer, but destroyers can definitely angle against these bombs well, unless you caught him off guard broadside. And I mean, once you caught him broadside with these bombs, they can do like massive damage. I mean, I have done like 10, 12,000 damage in one drop as well. So, but it has to be broadside destroyer. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And most of the time, destroyer knows that Max Immelmann has these strong skip bombs, so like they won't do that. So there's exactly that. Other than that, the problem with the Max Immelmann, these are the strengths that I have talked about. There are some things that basically not make it into a very strong tier is because, let me talk about the survivability. 65,000 HP pool, but that's okay. That's pretty typical of tier 10 aircraft carrier. But the problem is the armor. Even though there is a strength of the Max Immelmann, which is basically, if you're angled like this, if the battleship shoot at like this area, this is basically going to bounce a lot of shells, AP shells, okay? Which is pretty good, right? If any battleship shell hit here, okay, it will get overmatched and you will get penetration damage, and you will not going to tank that much. But in this situation, if you are angled, you can do pretty decent in terms of tanking. Like look at that. This will bounce a lot of shells. This will bounce a lot of shells, and this one too. And also the deck armor is fully 50mm. So very tanky deck armor, but again, 50mm is not enough for tanking out heavy cruiser or battleship HE shell. So you are definitely going to be very vulnerable, at least in that regard. And I mean, if someone shooting HE rockets like Tiny Tims, for example, you are going to take massive HE damage. So that is definitely not something that you want to see in Max Immelmann, right? These are the factors that basically makes it not the best, and I would say only strong, but not very strong, in my opinion. Anti-defense is also nothing to brag about. I mean, anti-defenses at tier 10, they used to be having an anti-defense rating of 95, 94, or at least 90, but in this case, it's pretty much okay, I would say. Above average for a CV, so nothing very special. It is Max Immelmann, however, is very vulnerable to get, HE bombs, like strikes and torpedo strikes. So it can be vulnerable to be like getting sniped. So keep that in mind. So these are some of those glaring weaknesses that I do not like about the Max Immelmann. Even though it does have some interesting secondary battery, if you build it with secondaries, which I think I recommend you to do so, you can actually have a decent secondary ship in the form of a CV, right? If the destroyer are trying to push you, and if you are not even able to use these skip bombers effectively, well, these secondaries can go around like 10 to 11 kilometers, and they can just have a decent accuracy that they can deal with destroyers effectively, without a doubt, okay? So that in that regard, Max Immelmann is pretty good, without a shadow of doubt. But still, not having rockets, skip bombers only have, by the way, skip bombers only have 68mm armor penetration capacity, and you bomb them like with the broadside, okay? You bomb them on broadsides. These skip bombs only hit to the broadside. It does not bomb like vertically, like on the top. They will not hit here, they will hit on that side. And if these sides, for example, in this case, Max Immelmann has 150mm, 145mm, 150mm. If the skip bombs, for example, hitting on Max Immelmann, gonna go here, well, they will shatter. The skip bombs will do 0 damage. And I mean, if you look at the battleship like Kurfurst, if you hit the bombs, the Max Immelmann bombs on the broadside of Kurfurst, well, they will all shatter. Look at that, 150mm, 280mm, 380mm. So these bombs will not going to penetrate this armor belt, and that's a huge disadvantage. I mean, surely if you are having a Thunderer, okay, Thunder does have vulnerability of 32mm, so there you can basically penetrate, but you have to aim these bombs on a superstructure. Like, for example, in the case of Kurfürst, like here, you have to aim skips in such a way that it's going to hit on the superstructure. If they hit here, you will not going to get any value, and that's actually a huge disadvantage that I do not like about Max Immelmann. So there is some inconsistency that I can say about the skip bombers that I do not like at all. It is pretty bad in that regard. And obviously, both torpedoes and skip bombers require you to get a broadside. These are not the armaments that need a target to be bow in. You need to get their broadsides. For example, the broadside like this is required. The broadside like this is required. for the torpedoes to hit, for the skip bombers to hit all of them. So that's a disadvantage. Even though the skip bombers have decent fire chance, without a doubt. One bomb has 63% fire, so it's pretty good, but still, these glaring weaknesses combined with the vulnerability of the deck armor and armor that could be a bit trollish. Getting CV sniped is possible by midway and FDR, basically makes maximum life a bit hard. And I would still gonna say that it's strong, but it is not strong like Malta. Malta is very strong, almost borderline overpowered in terms of its firepower capability. So here, I would definitely rate the Max Immelmann to be strong B+. Very easy, strong B+, no doubt about it. Okay, the next ship is going to be Tier 7 Lazo. It's another Tier 7, and apart from the Flint, that is Tier 7 light cruiser, there is another light cruiser that is Soviet Lazo. I would say Lazo is basically in a weak category. No, or maybe even please no. Lazo seems to be pretty bad. I don't want to pick that Lazo, man. Lazo is not good, unfortunately. I want to say it weak, but it is no. It's a terrible idea to pick this ship, man. So let me show you why this ship is so funny. It is such a meme ship that you should not pick at all. So where's the Lazo? I need to find out the Soviet ship. So there it is. A Tier 7 cruiser that you can buy for coal. I don't remember the coal resources, but they are definitely quite a lot lower. So what is Lazo? So Lazo is basically having these 12 of these guns, having impressive 17.3 kilometer range, right? So these guns with 9 seconds of reload time. I will talk about the reload time later, but yeah, 12 of these guns, 17.3 kilometer range, which is impressive. Probably are one of those strengths of this ship. And that's basically the strengths of the ship. Other than these strengths, there is also one more strength that I want to talk about. It comes up with this rapid takeoff spotter, okay? So basically, you can even extend the firing range by using this spotter for basically 60 seconds. And their cooldown time is also pretty fast. And that's actually the only gimmick that Lazo comes with to basically makes it a bit appealing. Other than that, Lazo is complete trash. Sorry, I don't want to say trash, but it is absolutely trash. This spotter might be useful. You might want to think, okay, I will get like 19, 20 kilometer firing range, maybe 19 kilometer firing range. That's very impressive. I can just farm at long ranges. No one will shoot me. But the thing is, these shell arcs are pretty arky, like from 17.3 kilometer plus. It will take a lot longer and difficult to lead a battleship even. And forget about cruisers and destroyers. It will be almost impossible to land those shells on cruisers, like on destroyers, but only on battleships that you can use this rapid takeoff spotter and farm that battleships. And that's the role of the Lazo. There's no radar. It does not come up with anything. It does not come up with heal. It does have poor anti-defense. It is really bad against the CV. It is really bad against the submarines because it only has ship-based, not plane-based, only ship-based ASW strikes, which means that you just send depth charges from the ship itself. Those are terrible things to be even used at, like really. It's not going to work well. Submarine's going to be really strong against you. Carrier's going to be absolutely broken against you. You have no chance on dealing with carriers. Your guns are good, but the reload time is still higher. I would have loved to see like 6 or 7 seconds of reload time base. And this spotter gimmick does not give much value to the Lazo at all. Your concealment is pretty Your speed is good, but your turning circle is pretty bad of 900 meter. Basically makes Lazo a very painful ship to play. It's really not that good, guys. Please don't buy it. I would highly recommend you to not do that, and hopefully you will understand what I meant by it. It does also not having heal. And not having heal basically means a lot. Seriously. It's pretty bad. It's, if I can show you something more, this is its Citadel armor. 100 millimeter, way above waterline. Getting overmatched by every battleship in the game. 25 millimeter, easy overmatch. 16 millimeter, easy overmatch. Come on. You should not buy this ship. You have torpedoes that have pretty poor range, 4 kilometers, so it's not pretty interesting. Only 3 torpedoes on each side, by the way. So it's funny. It's funny, like, I mean, why this coal ship exists even for coal. Come on, this is super bad. Please no. Okay, so the next ship, that is going to be a tier 9 German battleship. And that is for 228k coal, Pommern. Pommern gets into a, I would say, I want to talk, like, if you're top tier, it can easily go into the strong. Like, simple. Strong B plus for tier 9, top tier matchmaking, satisfactory on basically a tier 10 matchmaking, okay? But I will give him some advantage just for the sake of that I love German battleships. So Pommern is definitely strong or satisfactory in the middle of this tier list, okay? So why this Pommern is interesting or strong, okay? That's the question. Let me go and check out the German Pommern. So the Pommern basically is there. There's the Pommern. It is available right now. You can buy it. So the interesting thing about the Pommern is that it has decent HP pool for its tier. At tier 9, you have 81,000 HP, which is pretty nice, by the way. Torpedo protection is nothing to brag about. It's pretty average, nothing too special. But it is basically like a Kurfurst at tier 9, but having less caliber. 380mm guns. The reload time is 29 seconds base. Firing angles is pretty bad, by the way. Just like Kurfurst, it has pretty bad firing angles, but firing range is pretty good, 21.3 kilometer. That is pretty good. You have access to torpedoes, unlike German Kurfurst, by the way. This is actually one of the good things about the Pommern that basically makes up for a lot of the problems or disadvantages compared to Kurfurst. Like, Kurfurst and Pommern both suffers from bad firing angles, and Pommern also have 380mm guns. I mean, most of the cruisers at this tier can actually able to bounce these shells, and that's the reason why I'm not a fan of Pommern. But it does have torpedoes. It does have actually pretty good secondaries. Like, if I use Gunther Lutyens, I mean, you know that it basically have a secondary buff once you get secondary, like 100 secondary battery hits, which is pretty good. You can put it into a Pommern, which basically makes it a lot better. And these secondaries does pretty good damage, right? They have enough pen, for example, 47mm pen, 32mm pen with IFHE. If I can show you here, I have put IFHE for Pommern. So if you have the IFHE enabled, you basically can pen battleships easily, cruisers easily, and it could be a German secondary monster at this tier. Like at this tier 9, it is pretty good. So in this reason, and for that, I would put it into a strong or basically satisfactory. Weakness is obviously the same weaknesses that goes for the Kurfürst, it also goes for the Pommern. It has a lot of armor, which is good to shatter a lot of HE, but you have a gigantic superstructure. So this armor does not matter. People shoot at your superstructure and farm you to death. And that's what exactly happens. Okay? And that's the reason why I'm not a fan of this thing, even though I really love German battleships, but still, it's something that I don't like in return. And these 12 guns also have 1.5 sigma, so actually not the best accuracy at all. You have 12 guns, so sometimes they hit onto the citadel from time to time, but the guns will most likely going to troll you a lot. 1.5 sigma is pretty unimpressive, no matter what. Even though it is 12 guns, still I don't like it. And because of this poor gun accuracy, and combine the fact that you get into a super ships tier, because once you are bottom tier, it only becomes satisfactory. You're basically mostly going to do a sniping thing in the ship, basically makes Pommern a satisfactory or sometimes strong, depending upon tier, and that's why I would rate it like that. So this ship is basically a decent ship if you want to buy it for coal, if you want to have a decent German battleship brawler, which also have torpedoes, sure, strong, or maybe satisfactory, depending upon tier. Okay, the final ship that we have is Yoshino, a tier 10 heavy cruiser, which is available for coal. I think 248 coal, if I'm not wrong, but yeah. I think this ship goes strong. This ship goes into the strong category. It's better than Azuma. I would definitely say it's better than Azuma in some ways. Okay, so the reason why I would rate Yoshino a bit better than Azuma. Azuma and Yoshino basically almost the same thing. There are differences though, compared to Azuma, which I will explain that the reason why I would rate Yoshino a strong ship. Okay, so let me show you the Yoshino real quick. So the Yoshino is gonna be just here. There it is. So Yoshino, compared to Azuma, which is a tier 9 heavy cruiser, IGN heavy cruiser, Yoshino actually have torpedoes. Yoshino actually has better reload time than Azuma. Azuma has 20 seconds of reload time. Yoshino has 18.5 seconds of reload time base, which is pretty good. And it also have access to the same shells. Nothing different. Azuma and Yoshino has same for 310 millimeter guns, so no differences whatsoever. It's still going to have same insane alpha damage, which is like 5,610, rivaling to 406 millimeter guns, which is very impressive. So you basically do a lot of damage. You also have a lot better firing range from Azuma, which is from 19.1 to goes now up to 21.3. You also have spotter plane. You also have 5 heals, even though they reload a bit slowly. Normal heals and normal cooldown time. Azuma has fast cooldown time, but Yoshino has normal cooldown time. But it's okay, you do have 5 heals, you do have spotter plane, and hydro or defensive AA. That's pretty good about this. Yoshino, I mean, in terms of entire defense, it's actually going to be pretty good against carriers at tier 8. Against tier 10s with defensive AA, I would say it's pretty good. Without defensive AA, it's definitely going to suffer a lot. So keep that in mind. So Yoshino obviously suffers again from this gigantic turning circle, even though the speed is pretty good. The concealment is also pretty good, but with my build, it's a bit higher, like 13.7. It's quite a lot higher, just because that I have put IFHE on it. Sorry, the heavy HE and sap shells that improves the HE and sap shells, but increases the detection by a lot of margin, and that's the reason why it suffers like that with this concealment. With my build, by the way, you can put it down to like 11.9 kilometer if you want to do it, which basically makes it quite stealthy for a heavy cruiser like that. Also have slightly higher hit points, which is nice. You have, again, average torpedo protection, nothing to brag about. It's not that impressive. Agir has the really impressive torpedo belt, without a shadow of doubt. So with these things, with these HE shells combined with very good AP, basically makes Yoshino a really, really strong, at least B plus strong tier ship. I mean, let me show you the torpedoes real quick. So at least compared to Azuma, Yoshino actually have torpedoes, okay? And it has a lot of torpedoes, by the way. It has 8 torpedoes on one side, 8 torpedoes on the other side, which is pretty nice. So you basically send these 20 kilometer torpedoes. These are Shimakaze base torpedoes, which are pretty interesting. I mean, they can go for 20 kilometer, and they're basically going to land maybe on battleship that is not aware that these torpedoes are coming from Yoshino. And honestly, I'm telling you, these can help a lot, not only in brawling, but also when you are in kiting. So very valuable torpedoes, without a doubt. And with that said, this Yoshino is basically a solid B plus strong tier ship. No doubts whatsoever. It's pretty good. So I hope you liked it and enjoyed my tier list. So as you can see here, let me zoom out a bit here, just a second. So this is my tier list here. So you can able to see, I'm coming up to the conclusion for all the ships that I have basically explained. And I totally believe that the Forrest, Sherman, and Marceau are really the strongest out of all cold ships in the game. Malta is like, Forrest Sherman with SAP is amazing. It is really, really good. If you have Forrest Sherman, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, and if you're looking to buy one, I think it is definitely worthy for call. Marceau is also amazing, insane HE DPM, AP DPM, a lot of torpedoes, very high speed, like 55 knots, crazy good guns. Concealment isn't that impressive, but it has so many strong tools Also, it also have decent AA. So I mean, if you don't like carriers, Marceau is actually a good pick against CVs as well, which is nice. So these things are pretty good against like many stuff, okay? And that's why I put it into a broken tier. They are a bit too strong currently in the game and are still available to purchase. And that's the good thing, that you should buy right now these ships. No doubt whatsoever. I recommend you highly to buy these ships. They are amazing destroyers for now. Obviously, very strong category includes Malta, really strong ship. I mean, rockets, destroyers, torpedoes, battleships, bombers, cruisers. You basically can counter everything, except maybe Manfred von Richthofen. If he wants to snipe you, that's a problem. But other than that, very strong. Malta is insanely good. So much planes on deck, infinite almost. It's pretty good. Black is good with radar and smoke combo. I think no one has this lethal combo in the game. Only Black has, which basically makes it really strong as a cap contester or cap denier. It's gonna do wonders. In terms of competitive, in terms of ranked gameplay, it is gonna be really good. Like Napoli, it's a tier 10 cruiser. It is really tanky. In defense point of view, I think the Napoli is the best out of all. It is so strong. It has amazing armor sights, like 60mm sight, 40mm deck, basically bounce so many battleship shells, decent like smoke, exhaust smoke generator, even though the guns are not that impressive, but it's gonna be still just fine. And that's why I really like Napoli. Amazing secondaries, by the way. These SAP secondaries that it has, probably one of the best thing in the game that they have given to cruisers, so it's pretty interesting in that regard. Kearsarge, oh my goodness. My favorite battleship at tier 9, really. You have planes, you have 12 guns, you can spot destroyers, you can spot cruisers with your planes, you basically farm HE on battleships, you can shoot rockets on battleships. Crazy, insanely good at long ranges. Definitely very worthy to be strong or very strong A tier. Neustrashimy, a zombie heal DD, amazing concealment. I mean, the gun DPM isn't that impressive, but it's still gonna be pretty good, okay? So I really like Neustrashimy. It's a torpedo boat that basically can heal back and just come back again, heal back and come back again until it can able to kill the target. So it's pretty good in that regard. So the Brisbane, insane 12km radar, amazing torpedoes, good firing angles. Like it's literally a Minotaur with HE shells and torpedoes with insane radar. I mean, what can go wrong with it? I mean, if you are an experienced player, definitely worth it to use it. I mean, it's definitely for experienced players because it is definitely does not come up with smoke. So please keep that in mind. Then we have Salem, a Des Moines copy that has super heal, does amazing against cruisers, very good against battleships. If you know what you are doing, definitely you will get overmatched, but you're still going to do good if you know what you are doing, okay? It does also have it does also have radar. I mean, you also have defensive AH, so you should be fine against carriers. So there are so many things. In terms of versatility, I think Salem is very good. So I really like it to be in a very strong A. And then you have U-4501. Amazing torpedoes, really good homing torpedoes, really insane homing torpedo ping widths. Like, you will get double ping super easy in this ship. You have insane underwater speed in the game, amazing in so many aspects. Even though you also have, by the way, reserve battery capacity as well. I mean, if you are running out of battery, you have a consumable. I think I didn't talk about that, but it is so good to use it, and it will work wonders. Groningen, insane or absurd HE DPM. You have only 2 guns, but they have so much DPM that you can easily able to farm battleships and cruisers. Absolutely fun to play, very strong A ship for sure. Also have hydro and gearing smoke, which basically makes it super powerful. You have Agir, German guns, you have torpedoes, you have tanky side armor, you can do pretty good. 305mm guns can smash cruisers, you can penetrate battleships at ranges, decent firing angles. I mean, not decent firing angles, but at least decent guns for sure, okay? And that's why I do like Agir. It's a good German brawler. Sometimes you want to push in. I think Agir is a lot better choice than Azuma. Azuma, you don't want to push in. I will talk about Azuma later once it comes. But yeah, Agir is definitely a strong ship. Not at least very strong, but it is strong. Then we have Moskva, radar, Good guns, HE, AP, does absolutely everything amazing. And I mean, even though you have to play bow in from time to time, like almost all the time, but it does have a very good chance of winning games because you can take on cruisers and battleships with ease by bow tanking. And that's why I really like Moskva. Then you have Iwami, a Japanese battleship that has torpedoes. A Shimakaze torpedoes, which are 20 kilometer, has really, really good guns, 410 millimeter guns. So there are so many things to talk about, which basically makes Iwami really, really good. Then we have Hayate, a torpedo reload booster with 20 torpedoes, like you can drop on a single attack run. And then you have these guns that are pretty good, rivaling to that of destroyers. You have really, really okay concealment. I'm not going to say that it's impressive, but it's pretty good. And I really like Hayate, to be honest. The recent buffs makes Hayate to be at least that strong to be into a B+ category, for sure. Then I have this ship, which is Khabarovsk. Khabarovsk is basically a pain to deal with. It's just a gunboat that basically farms you at long ranges all the time. You can speed juke shells easy peasy lemon squeezy, and you will just do wonders. No problem whatsoever. And I really like Khabarovsk. It's a pain to deal with. It is definitely pain to deal with, okay? Then we have Halford, a unique destroyer that have planes like Kearsarge. Kearsarge has planes, Halford has planes. It's insane. And then, I mean, you have torpedoes. Even though your HE DPM is not good, your torpedoes are only 5. But it is definitely a unique ship, and for that, you can spot destroyers, you can smoke and farm battleships. I mean, you can go and use your rockets to attack and basically maybe set fires. It can spot for itself in terms of unique ways that you will not be able to do so, makes Halford interesting. Then you have Tulsa, a copy-paste sort of Des Moines, a light Des Moines at tier 9, having 9 kilometer radar, having decent guns, so you can take on cruiser like pretty easily. I do like Tulsa, but it's still okay ship. And that's why I put it into a strong B+ category. And then you have Flint. Flint is very reliant on matchmaking. I mean, if you have a matchmaking in which you are top tier, you are definitely a strong ship. 100% strong ship. No doubt whatsoever. But if you are bottom tiered, put it in here. It's going to go into weak. Or maybe it's going to go here. Totally depends on matchmaking. And that's why I put it into a strong B+ category. Very matchmaking reliant. And that's why it is there. I can put it into the satisfactory, and that should be just fine. But you can see why. Very good guns, by the way. I mean, destroyer guns, but still a lot of DPM makes this Flint a lot up for it. Then I have Max Immelmann. I talked about the Max Immelmann, pretty good. These, skip bombers are pretty interesting. If you drop them, you will understand how powerful they are. You have torpedo bombers, skip bombers, tons of planes on deck. Very good overall, like carrier. I really recommend it. It's good if you have Malta, for sure. It is pretty good. Pommern, German brawler that has torpedoes. I really like Pommern. Sometimes you really love to see when you are at top tier, and it will basically pounce or any battleship. Like once your secondary is gonna get up and running with Guntur Lutyens activated, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I can tell you that. Even though it's not gonna be a game changer to be like very strong or broken, but it is gonna be pretty good. Then we have Yoshino, a very good back sniper, farm battleships like crazy, and also have torpedoes that can hit from time to time suddenly, like it's funny. Yoshino is pretty good as well. Then UrAvgWarGamer, basically the Yoshino without torpedoes. I really like it. Once you are comfortable playing at long ranges, you will feel okay. So Zuma is going to be pretty good here, at least in the B category. It does have very bad armor. Yoshino also have a bad armor, but at least it does have, long range, very long range, comfortable range. Azuma only have 19.1, so there are a couple of things that is, like that makes Azuma to be on a satisfactory tier. Then we have Kurfurst, 12 guns again. Impressive, at least in terms of gun power, but again, the dispersion, 1.8 sigma, makes it a bit okay. Gigantic superstructure causes it to be onto a satisfactory tier, but it's definitely fun to play from time to time. If German Kurfürst is a tier 10 Pommern, obviously the Pommern is the same thing like Kurfurst, but at least Pommern has torpedoes. Kurfurst does not. So at least a couple of things that Kurfurst felt, short compared to Pommern, that makes it to be into a satisfactory tier for me. I mean, if you like burst fire, Alvaro de Bazan is interesting, but other than that, it does not have anything special. It does have a speed boost and smoke, so you can farm battleships with these, but it sometimes works wonders, I would say, that once you're able to understand when to use this burst fire correctly, it will be a bit interesting, for sure. But other than that, it's going to be onto the B tier. Not that impressive, but not that bad either. It's going to be okay, just fine. And then we have Duke of York. I would say standard battleship. If you want to have a battleship that wants to, use hydro, okay, you can pick and play with this ship. Guns are nothing too special. 356mm guns are not going to be impressive by any means, but hey, at least you have a battleship that you want to buy for lower resources. And for that, I will put it into a satisfactory tier. Then I have Tromp. Tromp have airstrikes, just like ASW attacks, okay? And sometimes it could do wonders. If you hit onto the superstructure, you can do 6-7K drop and set a couple of fires, and you basically farm damage by shooting them. Once the damage gone, and you also have torpedoes that fast load quickly, even though you have quite a lot of low torpedoes. You don't have a lot of torpedoes in general. So Tromp is a bit weird. I'm not a fan of this ship, and that's why I put it into a B tier. You can go and check out some videos. You will understand that how this ship meant to be played. Then we have Marco Polo, a ship that has sap guns. Interesting, but it's okay. The armor profile is pretty good, but the sap does hurt, but the saturation, when it kicked in, basically Marco Polo damage output gets lowered as well. And obviously, not having the highest of the HP pool makes it just to the satisfactory B tier. I would recommend it if you have all the other strong or at least very strong ships in the game. Okay ship for sure, but that's about it. Then you have a speed boost heavy cruiser Carnot. If you like French cruisers that have access to speed boost, so if you want to speed juke anyone, Carnot is not that bad. You can just have this speed juker in your port, a French heavy cruiser, which has a bit of a taste for itself, like having access to speed boost. If Agir has torpedoes, Azuma has good HE guns, then Carnot have speed boost. So it's just the taste like that. And I felt it to be just a satisfactory B tier. Nothing special, nothing too bad, but there are better options, that's for sure. And then we have a Z44, definitely not recommended. Only a torpedo boat, and there are so many other destroyers like Destroyer Sherman, Marceau, Neustrashimy, Black, you name it. There are so many destroyers that you can get. I won't recommend this ship. It's not going to be that worth it. It's not good. And Lazo, please no. I don't want to talk about it. You just don't even look at that ship. It's just terrible, in my opinion. So, whoa, that is so many ships. 31 ships that I have talked about. Each of the ship's strengths and weaknesses and recommendation that I did in this video. And please guys, if you can able to subscribe to my channel, that would be so much good. And because I've spent so much time on this video, it hopefully will give you a lot of valuable information with this tier list that I have given to you. And I really recommend you to subscribe to my channel. I make daily World of Warship videos. Just like I said at the start of the video, I will say it at the end as well, so that it will motivate me a lot into making more World of Warship videos. And thank you guys. If you have subscribed after watching this video, that will be so much appreciated. So thank you guys for watching. If you have anything to talk about, if you have anything that I have missed in this video, if you have any feedback that you want to give for this tier list, please comment down below, and I would definitely love to reply you back, and will give you my insights, even more insights, what I really have for that particular ship. If you really want to know even more, I can help you with that for sure. So thank you guys for watching. I hope I just given you each and every detailed analysis and review of these ships, so you can able to buy and purchase them the best way possible. Okay, so these are the best cold tiers list ships that I'm able to make for you guys. So I hope you understand, and I hope you liked and enjoyed it. And if you do that, peace out and keep watching new of my videos. Okay? So thank you guys.